live. Hello, everyone. I am here, of course, with Bustin Trudeau and a fully grown garden gnome.
Jeez.
And today we have a show for you.
Jesus
Uh,
Christ.
I see you've been watching the Grand Tour a bit, or
no,
Top Gear.
I haven't. Not recently.
Oh,
Although,
you're coming in with the Jeremy Clarkson introductions.
oh, okay. Am I? I apologize. Wait, no, that's a good thing.
Yeah, no,
that
that was complimentary.
Okay. No, I'd just like to launch into the show because we have a lot of folks who don't like the blather ahead of time, right? Which inevitably happens and will probably happen again today. But we have a show for you guys that is somewhat post-CanJam. I do want to let folks know that we are working on a CanJam wrap-up video, but we were all there at CanJam SoCal 2024. So we're going to talk about some of that stuff today, give some impressions. Blaine gave a talk at CanJam, so we also want to talk a little bit about that. And then we will, of course, get into the usual shenanigans of the Subjectivist Challenge and Spicy Hour. For folks who are watching this after the fact, you can also check this out as a podcast on Spotify and various other different podcast platforms. But if you are watching it in video form, you'll be able to see the cards down below. I'm not sure if they're up right now, but there'll be cards to indicate which section we are on, and so you can skip around to the one that you are most interested in.
And we're going to try to timestamp it with the topics. It can be a little hard because we meander a bit, but we're going to do our best to make it so people can jump around to what they actually want to hear.
Yep. But with that, the housekeeping out of the way, let's launch into the live stream.
Well, no, hold on. We are brought to you, as always, by Headphones.com, your number one place to learn about and buy audio equipment. Please go to Headphones.com, visit our forum, visit our store in particular, and buy something, or else the three of us will starve to death live on stream while you watch.
Man, after CanJam, I feel like I could starve a little bit. I had a lot of good food in LA. LA is a good place for food. Oh, and of course, the topics that we pick here usually come from the forum. So there's a thread linked in the description where you guys can contribute other topics that you guys want discussed. Always a big help to us because our brains are effectively running dry on topics. So
yeah, we're kind of out of ammo at this point.
Yeah.
We've said all the words about audio to be said.
Please post in the thread and post in the thread things that are not like the same things that are perennially discussed in this hobby. Like,
exactly.
I mean, it would actually be funny if they just did like a protest where they just only did the 5 topics we always beat to death over and over again.
We got time domain issues. We got source memery, ragging on snake oil, and why the industry is terrible. By the way, a lot of these...
for us, we would also definitely have humans have different preferences. People might prefer different headphones.
Yeah.
We have like everyone should just get a mid-fi headphone and leave the hobby. Like you could write like if you gave AI our what?
I disagree with that, even though that's what I would do.
So I mean, there has to be something that synthesizes the fact that because we both do this. There are things that both of us will agree with and we'll both still, or that we would both do ourselves, but we'll still argue with them just because we're terrible.
Yeah, we're contrarians. By the way, speaking of all this stuff...
Wait, no, fuck. Pointless contrarianism should be on the bingo. How did we forget that?
Okay, well, we'll do that for the next one. We do have Noise Floor Bingo. It has been updated, so there's new ones. And the way this works, it's linked it's pinned to the top of the chat there. The way this works is if you get a bingo, you let us know, and then we stop the stream. That's the end of it. Forever, actually. It's never happened before.
Lying through his teeth. Just lying to the people.
That's why we play it. That's why we play the bingo. Have you guys seen Inglourious Bastards?
Yeah.
I mean, not for many years.
So there's the one bit where he's like, "That's a bingo." And the guy is like, "It's just bingo."
That's a classic gift.
Yeah.
That's a good one. He's great.
Yeah. It's up there with the downfall Hitler pounding the table.
Yes, indeed. I'm just gonna blast this out to our socials and stuff like that.
Oh, that's a good idea. I should probably do that.
Maybe you want to ping Stream Gang here.
Timestamp this section as lying to the people. Yeah, I mean, honestly, we could just title that could be the title of the podcast if the noise floor gets us sued.
Just lying people. What? Yeah.
I mean, we are the voice of Big Headphone.
We are the voice of Big Headphone. That's right. We're here to manipulate.
Well, 2 out of the
you.
3 of us. You guys are the voice of Big Headphone. I am the voice of medium to small headphone.
Okay, that's wow. All right, that was really stupid, but I'm here for it. Hey, Mark Ryan's in the chat.
Oh, what's up, Mark?
Nice Mr. Super.
It was really nice to hang out with Mr. Super. Shoutouts to Mr. Super.
Bro, he didn't hang out with me. It was fucked up. I invited him to dinner, and he was just like, "Nah." I'm still sad.
Get wrecked.
I mean, you were both at Cameron's thing, right?
Yeah.
Well, we were both at taco night, but so was the entire show.
Man, I it's funny because I filmed stuff at taco night, and then I watched the footage back afterwards, and I was like, I can't make any of this public. Like, we are way too belligerent at this moment.
You say we. I think what you mean is
me, and well, whoever I was talking to at the time. You weren't.
Well, did you get? Well, we can at least make the footage of Constantine wearing the hentai headphones public, right?
The
yes, but we could do that. If you want to see Oratory 1990 wearing the Weeb headphone, you have to join our Discord server.
I filmed the headphone. I don't know if I have him specifically wearing it.
Oh, I do.
No, yeah, Blaine has pics. Of course, Blaine has pictures.
Yeah.
Okay, well, with that, we should probably start with like our actual topics, correct?
Yeah. So we should. Otherwise,
so I had organized it because we are kind of centering this on the HE1000 Unveiled impressions. I figure we can get into that first. How do you feel about that?
Well, maybe just before that, do you guys want to give general, like, succinct kind of sense of CanJam for you guys? Like,
well, I figured that'll be like the longest topic. So
okay, sure.
I mean, I can do mine in like a sentence.
Okay, I want to hear it. What's your sentence?
Admittedly, it's a sentence with a semicolon. But like, no.
An inch takes a mile.
This is a sentence like Locke, right? Like where it's just like pages of one sentence.
No.
If you ever tried to read Locke, it's like that. It's awful.
It is like that. No, it's love the show. Had an absolutely fantastic time. It was entirely the people. The products were so fucking boring this year.
You know what though? Okay, for me, the thing was there were so many cool DIY projects, and of course PUD stuff, right? Like that's part of it. But like to me, it was about the DIY stuff, right? Like there was
okay. I mean, like that's fun, but that's also like fun only for the people who were there. Like it's not like anyone in. Well, yeah. I mean, it is and it isn't. Like no one in the chat is ever going to hear most of this shit.
It's not industry exciting, right? Nothing was groundbreaking. Nothing was
groundbreaking. Nothing was even fucking ground reaching.
Well, to be fair though, we also didn't hear everything, right?
The only thing that I didn't hear that I wanted to hear was the carbon.
Same.
I heard the carbon. The carbon too.
Yeah. We should move to HE1000 impressions.
Yeah. All right, HE1000 impressions. So this is HE1000 Unveiled.
Okay, wait.
Clear,
can we just do
the only one who has heard this?
No, I have.
Oh, you have? Excellent.
Yeah, Andrew, do you want to do a 3, 2, 1 and we just say the one line take?
No, I don't have the same. I'm not on the same wavelength as you with this. What's your?
That's fair. It's okay.
Is it that naked exposed drivers to the world are bad? Like,
I mean, with the tighter bar spacing, it's less of a problem.
It's honestly totally not nearly as much of a problem as the Susvara, because there's like the surface area for the exposed driver is like not remotely close. Like I tried putting 3.5 millimeter connectors through this and I couldn't.
If y'all are ever wondering why Andrew doesn't like the Susvara Unveiled, it's because he always tries to put a 3.5 millimeter connector into headphone drivers, and that was the first one that let him.
No, I actually did. I wasn't able. I didn't do it on the Unveiled either, but I could have if I wanted to, right? And that would have destroyed it.
Yeah. Honestly, it just sounded very to me. Like it sounds like an HE1000 to me.
It doesn't sound like an HE1000 to me. It sounds notably less bright in the mid treble. It measures less bright too, but to
this
me,
is probably one of those things where I'm being a boomer, because I remember when the HE1000 was famously the smooth hi-fi man.
But the original might have been. I'm comparing it against the V2.
V1.
Yeah. The V2 had that sort of like there's a stronger ear gain generally and a stronger distance between the ear gain and then the flat kind of like 900
I know
hertz
what you
from
mean.
down. Yeah. So there is a consistent thing with the Unveileds that I've noticed so far with, well, there's two models, but you get what I mean. And it's that typical Hi-Fi Man dip at around 1.5 kilohertz is filled in a bit. It's lessened. So that dip it's still there, but it's much more subtle on some of
And I
the other
think that's
ones.
a good thing.
I think it's a good thing across the board. Like it's categorically better for both of them in that region. Um, in my opinion, this is the most balanced HE1000, but that's also in comparison to the SE and the V2. To Blaine's point, the original may not have had as much of that sort of distance for the ear gain. My only real criticism that I have of this is, I think for me at least, there's a bit of excess 4 kilohertz, right? Like 4 to 5 kilohertz. Um, could just be me, but like there is
Hmm.
it has, I'm gonna borrow a phrase from listener, that sort of like clenched presentation to the treble. I love that. I love that the subjective word.
What's funny
Um
is I know what you mean a bit, but I
yeah,
actually think that the treble above that is too low for me.
like
Like I
the
listen,
6K, 7K stuff.
yeah, yeah. For me, it was a little bit too
Oh, so
relaxed.
okay.
Yeah,
So
I'm
you
fine
meant
with the
right
dip
above
there.
that, not like
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
Yeah, I
above
get what you, yeah.
the stuff.
Yeah. And then the upper treble, there is extra presence there, but like that's par for the course for a lot of this stuff, right?
yeah. I mean, I
Um
don't mind that
I
honestly.
don't
I
mind it
actually kind
either.
of like
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I agree. Especially for these kind of presentations that have a lot of ear
You
gain.
can
If
see Griffin seething at us liking 10K
yeah,
plus
No, I
boost.
already know your
yeah.
preferences.
But
This
it's like
makes all the
it
sense in the
serves
world
to
to
kind
me.
of balance out that kind of more forward ear gain presence, right? As far as the measurements are concerned, like it's pretty good. Again, reminiscent of other HE1000s, just with that kind of mid-range feature filled in a little bit more. So I would say, yeah, this is one of my. I was not expecting to like this. You know, if I think about the Sysvara OG versus the Sysvara Unveiled, it's a toss-up. There are things the Unveiled does better, but there are things the OG does better. And I can see a perfectly good, argument that the OG is actually more preferable because it has better treble in a couple spots. In this case, I think it's almost across the board better um, than the V2, right? Maybe not the original, but better than the V2. And I
I
would
mean, I
also
think it's
say,
probably better, but I
yeah,
wasn't super impressed with any of the HE1000s.
yeah, but then also better than the Aria platform as well. Like the Aria Stealth and Organic, etc., etc. I find this to be better. It's less modal as well, like less modal in the mids, and also it has less of the sort of like jaggedy shit in the ear gain region that sometimes could propagate on those headphones.
I think people might prefer the Aria Organic because it has that bass bump thing.
Oh, that's true. It has the bass contour, which is interesting, and this is more just flat all the way down.
Yeah, that
Um,
sounds much more conventionally Hi-Fi-Man-y. The Aria Organic, I was like, oh, that's slightly
it
different.
has them dynamics. Well, maybe not. Maybe it depends how you want
Get
to
your
define
case
that.
in chat says, does it have punch and slam?
HATB. Doesn't have punch and slam. No. 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 Not like the way that we would sort of define that
It
character.
does not blam.
It does not blend, but it is. It's it's good. It's refined. It sounds detailed. It sounds airy and open. It is airy and open. It's very consistent across both heads. Like,
How do you feel about
I
the look?
a lot of people don't like it.
Oh, really? I think it looks actually really good.
Yeah,
I agree.
I was surprised how much I liked it.
In person, this looks actually really good. I have some complaints about the design. So, like, yeah, visually, I think it looks cool, but my worry is that these are like effectively just little holes, right?
Mhm.
I
They
could
are little
see,
holes.
yeah, I could see people getting like crud stuck in them, you know, and then
Oh,
that
yeah,
would
no,
maybe
that could get crudted up pretty bad.
pretty, yeah.
I
So
mean, you
it's
could
one
say
of
the
those.
same about like an HD 600 drill, to be fair.
That's true, yeah, but
And
no,
those do get crudted up. So,
yeah.
like,
Yeah. So people are going to roast me for my aesthetic preference here, but I prefer the way this looks over the wood veneer shit, right?
Over
oh
the
Um,
what?
god, yeah. I mean, does anyone like the wood veneers on Hi-Fi-Man?
there are people who do.
Oh,
I had this
yeah.
debate with Cameron. Cameron likes the OG Safari look with the wood veneer, and I'm like, really? And then I got roasted on
Wow.
Reddit for it because everybody likes the wood veneer on the Safari, and I'm like, no, the Unveiled looks better for that for that part. The colorway not so much. Like the weird brown color is not to my taste, but this looks great. This looks well, I mean, let's be real. This looks incredibly stupid, but like compared
Oh
to
yeah.
the other in the
Okay, well, I mean, let's
series,
be clear.
it looks better.
Almost all high-end headphones look incredibly
Yeah.
stupid, but
Yeah.
I would consider this an improvement. I mean, like the HE1000 has progressively looked better, starting from being the ugliest thing ever made by man. Did you guys ever see the Proto?
No,
No.
I've only seen V1.
Oh,
On the
I've
Proto,
seen
the slats were vertical.
yeah, I've seen that.
It looked so
Yeah.
bad. It looks
Yeah.
so bad.
Yeah. I will say on the Aria Organic, because it's black with the veneer, that works a bit better to me than the silver in the veneer, right?
Well,
Because
it doesn't look like it's faux mid-century, at least. That's nice.
yeah, but I think this is like the best looking one out of all of them, and I know that that's probably going to be a spicy take. But as far as like overall, like, is it a good headphone? Like, if you liked that egg shaped style Hi-Fi Men thing, this is one of the better ones. That's what I'm going to say.
I will say I wouldn't recommend it because you can get an Aria for like $400 now, and that's a way better deal.
It's
I
a
think
way
it's
better
closer
deal.
to
Like, it's not even
600,
close.
but
Isn't
yeah.
it? Is it?
I've seen it for 600. Yeah, it's a
Oh,
way
I'm
better
thinking of the
deal.
open box.
Yeah, so it's a way better deal. However, it's not unveiled.
Very true.
Yeah.
Oh, people in chat are asking if it comes with veils like the HE6.
It does.
I actually don't know.
It does come with veils.
Good
Yeah.
question.
I feel like you would be less worried about it though because of the smaller magnet gaps.
I'm not like because the OGs as far as disqualified for me. This one is not, because this one, it's smaller magnet gaps and it doesn't have the gap at the top and bottom is no different from the gaps in the middle. Whereas on the OG, it's like huge in that region. Sorry, in this is far up. It's huge in that region. So that's better.
Someone in chat says, how is it compared to the Cosmo and HE6 SE? It's better than the Cosmo, but most things are.
Yeah, I like the Cosmos. So I actually prefer the Cosmos treble presentation overall, even though it's more colored.
Veilify.
Hell yeah.
The Cosmo is like if someone just merged an Odyssey and a Focal, but in the bad ways, and then gave it Hi-Fi Man build.
So the thing is, you're like objectively right, but it still kind of sounds
It's good.
interesting.
It's
Like, I
it's
still
colored
enjoy that
and
headphone.
it's good because of its colorations. It's
Yeah,
tasteful
yeah,
coloration.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It
No,
just sounds like
like
a parody of the HG600 to me.
really, it doesn't sound HE600 like to me at all, because
No. When I say like a parody, like when people complain about the 600, they're like, "Oh, it's got shout. Oh, it's got it's too thick.
the
Oh, it's
Cosmo
got
doesn't have
veil."
shout.
It does
It
have
has
shout.
No, it has a bit of honk
Okay.
because it's got a bit forward 1 kilohertz. That
Okay,
unless you're
whatever.
calling
It
that
has
shout.
it has too much between 800 hertz and 2 kilohertz relative to the area below it.
Do you call that
Are we
shout?
okay with that? Some people call it shout. Some people call it honk.
I'm basing it off of the like the solder dudes thing where it's got descriptions.
I mean,
Where honk is the 1K thing, right? 800 to 1K.
Well, that
honk there.
depends. Some people call it boxiness as well. Some people use that to refer to a peak at like 500 hertz.
I would call
personally
boxiness more like 500, 400 hertz.
like. I put
Box.
anything in the forward upper mid range into generally shout-ish, but yes, it isn't quite the same as the timbre shift of having too much to like 3 to 4K.
Yeah. And there's glare.
It's honky.
Yeah. Now we're just quibbling
I
about
would say
terms,
honky
but
is
honky
about
is my
right.
Yeah, it's a bit honky. But and then it's not just a bit, we're talking about the Cosmo here, but it's not just a bit honky because of the forward character, it's that combined with the fact that it's relaxed for the ear gain as well. But
yeah, it's the same problem Odyssey sometimes had. Like, I don't know if they still sound like this, but the first time I heard an LCD2F, I had a similar experience. It's not in the same area.
A new unit of the Odysseys in like years, so I don't know.
But yeah, like the first time I heard a 2F, I was like, yeah, I mean, that's just a little bit too much between like 1 and 2K, just because there's so little above it that you crank it and then it's like,
yeah. Anyways, I quite like the Cosmos. Now we're talking more about the Cosmo, but like I quite like that the autofocal presentation, because I will agree
that you take it over the HE1000 Unveiled.
No EQ?
No EQ.
Sure.
Yes.
including ergonomics.
No.
Yeah.
Ha!
Jesus
That's what I
Christ.
thought.
That thing is
The
ergonomic
Moondrop
nightmare.
really needs to get a mechanical designer.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk more about the mechanical design stuff later, I think.
Yeah, well, yeah. We'll talk
Yeah.
about that later.
What's next? Other
I
information?
actually wanted to ask you another question about the HE1000
Sure.
Unveiled.
Yeah.
So do you feel like, because it seems the two changes that are consistently happening with the Unveiled change to these existing designs is that, yeah, the 2K is getting filled in and the mid treble is getting lower. Do you feel like for both of them, this makes the kind of lower treble crunchiness more of a feature in the headphones response?
The like 4 kilohertz?
Yeah, around there, yeah.
Because of the more bringing things in line? Or just
Yeah, like, well, specifically, I feel like the hi-fi mans, they have a lot of upper treble and mid treble, such that when you curtail those
Yeah.
things slightly. So I heard the
I would say
Susvara Unveiled, and I was surprised how much I didn't prefer it to the
to
original
the OG.
Susvara,
Yeah. Yeah, because
because
it
even though
has
the
more of
treble
that.
above
Yeah.
like 8K was so much nicer for me, it
Mhm.
just made the lower treble so much more apparent once
Yeah.
it was reduced.
It doesn't mask it as much. So, on
Yeah.
the, Unveiled, there is still lots of that upper treble presence. Sorry, on the HE1000 Unveiled, there is still, like, relative to the rest of it, it is still more there in comparison to the Susvara platform, which, I mean, the upper treble is, let's say, more correct, right?
Sure.
But yeah, it does reveal some of that forward character to the lower treble features on that one. On the Unveiled, on the HE1000 Unveiled, it's less like that. But I will say, to Blaine's point, the reduction in the mid treble is what makes you notice the 4K a bit, like feature a bit more. At least for me, right? Because it's I find even with the OG Susvara, I'm a bit sensitive to that 4K region for some reason, like that 4.3 kilohertz thing.
Yeah, no,
And
Sam, yeah.
yeah, it's like it kind of comes forward like that. It's weird because there is a sense in which the HE1000 Unveiled is actually closer to the Susvara platform compared to the V2 for its overall treble presentation. Um,
Got it.
and in that sense, I think it's good, it's better, but I noticed that same quality about it, that forward kind of 4K-ish region. So yes, but I don't think that's because of the more filled in mids, the more filled in 1.5 to 2K thing.
Gotcha.
I think it's because of the reduction in the mid treble. Anyway,
Got a question from Argon in chat. Did they upgrade the drivers in the unveiled models or just unveil them? At the very
What is
least in the
upgrade?
SUS. Well, in the SUS U they changed it. I believe they also changed the driver
Yeah.
in the HEC U.
Yeah. So you got I believe these are I believe these are sorry. What am I? Oh yeah, sorry. This is so on the inside you can see that's the magnets, and that's asymmetrical with the outside magnets here, right? So I believe they got fair.
Which has always been the case for the HE 1000, but I think that they changed how.
Well, but they've never had magnets like this.
Yeah.
This is new. So I believe, or do you mean like the membrane? Is the membrane different?
I don't know. I know that it is on the SUS-U. I don't know if it's different on
I
the
would
HEC-U.
it probably is, but because so the modal features are different. There are fewer modal resonances going on in the
Makes
mids on
sense.
this. The thing, okay. By the way, this is the actual unit from CanJam, so this is the unit that you guys would have heard. That's why it's also a bit scuffed in a couple of places because people were not careful with it. But so some of the narrative that I've seen online about the Susvara, the Unveiled, the HE1000, and all this, right, is that there were a bunch of there are a bunch of internal resonances to do with these headphones that taking the grill off improves or solves, right? Because if you look at the Unveiled platforms, they are less modal. Specifically with this one, less so on the Susvara one, but still, it
Not
has to do.
necessarily cause and effect, though.
That's what I'm saying. It's not cause and effect, and if any, like removing the grill isn't what is like. There may be an element, there may be an effect to removing the grill, but the bigger thing is if they change the driver itself, that is how you would be able to it's a we need to make sure it's attributed to the right thing. And I don't think that removing the grill is doing that in a situation where the driver wouldn't be doing that.
I think that
Right.
removing the grill is probably responsible for the 2K thing.
The 2K thing is probably what's but the modal differences, I think, is just because it's a different driver, because that would have to do with the diaphragm itself, the magnets, all that kind of stuff.
Well, and it also, if the damping is changed, it does have an effect. And ironically, having fewer wibbles implies that it has more resistance behind it. But
That's
on the
what I
other
was
hand, it
saying.
might just mean that there's a lossier, like the material itself
It could
is
be stiffer,
less
or
wibbly.
Higher
yeah,
damping,
tension
yeah.
could be higher or something, right? Like there could be something else that's responsible for that. And I was saying this online as well, that like in other cases of those Hi-Fi Man headphones where people were taking the grills off of, if it would actually reduce the damping, so you would be more likely to see the wibbles if they had them. I don't think they were that modal on the HE6 platform as they were on like the HE560 platform, but you would actually want to, if you wanted to reduce that, one way to do that would be to increase the damping, not decrease it. And here we're like, we say like removing the grill is the big thing. It's like, yeah, it is the big thing visually, but I'm sure you could put a grill on there that would be not acoustically, significant.
Yeah.
So anyway, that is
Audio with Arga asks, which one has lower acoustic impedance, this or Sysvara? Also, that's another bingo point. We don't know. The probable answer is that they are both very low acoustic impedance, but we don't have objective measures.
I will say this one, just off of my, like, I was doing a bunch of measurements with it preliminarily, like it's almost identical no matter what I do with the placement. Like it's,
Oh yeah, no, Eggymans are basically the ideal headphone for like listening tests.
yeah. We could talk a bit more. Maybe
Fun
we could talk
fact,
about
Fang does not like it when you call them that.
the Eggy Man. Oh, I
Eggy
didn't
Man?
realize that.
Yeah, no, he did not. I was like, yeah, all the Eggymans, and I was like, oh, wait. And they said ovals. I was like, right, ovals.
I love hanging out with Fang. Fang is a great guy.
Yes.
Yeah. I was gonna say, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, we could talk maybe a bit about the Fabian Brinkman stuff later on, Griffin, if you would like. The what is it? It's the Technische Universität Berlin. If I got the pronunciation correct from that.
TU Berlin has some really impressive stuff.
Yeah, to do with the acoustic impedance thing, because there is some development there, and we may need to walk back some of the thought process. But it's interesting to me, at least, and we can maybe talk about that later. But as far as the consistency of the HE1000 Unveiled, it's extremely consistent, like other Eggy Mans
Yeah, it
are.
doesn't surprise
Sorry,
me.
ovals.
Yeah, we can talk about that later, but
Yeah.
When she Fabian on my Brinkman until I Lindau. Anyway.
Oh my god.
So for those who don't know who Fabian Brinkman is, he's basically the primary academic thrust behind the papers and database we're talking about. Of
Blaine, don't make that face when he says academic thrust.
You are also not crediting Alexander Lindau, who is a frequent collaborator thereof.
He's one of the collaborators.
Brinkman et al.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah,
and he has his own hats. It's called the Fabian hat.
Oh yes, he does. Yeah. So
What
I
do you
didn't
call your
include
hat?
any of that data in the stuff I sent to you because it was a little bit different. But again, we'll talk about that later. Do you guys want to move on?
Sure. Let's CanJam stuff. So that was the impression for this stream, but there's lots of
Okay,
other
so you want to
CanJam
just
stuff
move right to
talk about.
CanJam? I had another little
did you?
thing in there, but I don't
Well,
know.
you
if it's the whole
had.
thing.
He's always done a little thing in there.
The FTC announcing the final rule banning fake reviews and testimonials.
We're ruined. We're all going to lose our jobs.
Everything we do is actually AI, just so you guys know. None of this is real.
Yeah, I didn't
You
know.
don't
if
know
guys
how
wanted
hard it
discuss
was
or
to
not.
find an actor who looked like this face.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, right, like it's a little less interesting for us to talk about it because it doesn't really apply to us, like, obviously. But I am kind of interested to see how this might affect.
I didn't realize how prevalent it is actually in the industry. It
Yeah.
is, because Taryn was sending me a bunch of this stuff, and I realized there's a ton of it that's just generated by AI. right? And it's like
Yeah.
none of this is real. The question that I would have is like, how are they? Is there? And I have not followed this thread, so like, feel free to educate me on this. But like, is there any interest in uh sussing out the stuff that's not necessarily fake, but is like like somebody, a real person may put it together, but it's just nonsense, right? Like there's
So you're
a
wondering if we can suss out the illegitimate reviewers among us.
if that's possible from any of this, right? Because there's some like an example might be like situations where somebody has even if it's not written by AI, right? Um, there's so much that's just like misattributed. Like it's not even trying to be, accurate. It's just trying to like promote a link.
So
You know what I
you're
mean?
trying to not only punish fake reviews, but punish bad reviews as well.
I mean, we would even call them reviews. It's the kind of
I mean, I
thing
would
that's
call
just
them
meant to be
bad
like an
reviews.
SEO farm, like
Right.
there, and I'm thinking of
Okay,
all
what
the
about
listicles,
people who are basically shills? Like those
That
are
that
another
too,
thing
that too, but I'm not
that
even
is
thinking of that.
already against FTC rules.
Yeah, I'm not even
Yeah.
thinking of that because like that, yeah. But I'm thinking of
Well, but the
the
thing is, we're
listicles.
not punishing them. We know some of them.
Who?
I can't say that without being sued.
Oh, okay.
I will tell you off channel.
Okay.
But we
Yeah.
do
You
know
mean like
someone who literally meets the definition
Do
thereof.
you mean we're friends with them, or do you mean like we
No.
know who they are? Okay, okay, okay. I was gonna say like, please enlighten me.
Well, I mean,
So
obviously, it's me.
so
Aha,
the
yes,
meat of
Mr.
the
Big Headphone
ruling
here.
is twofold. So yeah, the first big prong that I think most people are gonna
Talking about
focus
meat
on
and
when they see the
prongs, making
headline
me
is that
hungry.
it's trying to clamp down on all of the AI just slop out there that basically has no relevance to anything, and you know
Yeah,
that is something I definitely agree is a public good if it can be um, lessened as much as possible.
yeah.
And the other one is for positive reviews that have been incentivized, not having the incentives disclosed,
Mm.
which is
And those are the
interesting.
ones that exist in force.
Yeah, those
Now,
are the
does
ones
that
that I feel like are
include?
more prevalent in audio, and it's just the absence of disclosure is often a problem.
You know,
Now,
really, we should just get into the habit of shouting, "We are paid to do this by Headphone Store."
Yeah.
we do that.
And,
Yeah,
and well, so there is language in it that makes it explicit that what's the problem is paying for a positive impression or review without disclosure. So in that language, like we get paid for reviews, but I mean, I don't know about you guys, but like a lot of my reviews are not positive. A lot of the things we say about headphones are not positive.
most
So
of the reviews are not positive.
yeah,
Well, that's because most headphones are dog shit.
Yeah,
this is correct. But one might not get that impression from reading the reviews that are
Some other
positively
review
incentivized.
platforms.
well, I don't know. Like, I think there's it's so tough because there are times like, okay, so we've talked about the affiliate link thing in the past, and this is slightly adjacent to that, but like there's so many people who are reviewing products, and they get wrapped up in like uh manufacturer first of all reaches out to them and says, hey, do you want to review this thing? Second of all, and so it's talking to them, building a relationship. Second of all, sending them the thing to review. Whether or not they are allowed to keep it, it's a thing that allows them to produce a video on that, right? Which is part of the cycle. So like, how do you even police that? How do you even like look at that and say, okay, this one is clearly incentivized? Because so much of it is a gray area where it's like you don't even you're not even aware of what the biases are. They haven't necessarily been paid to do it that way, but there is a part of this the cycle and the churn that is a positive incentive,
Well, you'll never remove bias completely, and having a rule that everyone had to be completely unbiased would be impossible to enforce
Impossible.
as a
Yeah.
result.
Yeah, like even
But
people who buy this stuff, right? It's like they're biased because they spent their money on it.
oh yeah, the copium is the most powerful bias, honestly.
Yeah.
But no, I really don't think that it's a big problem if there are the small things. The problem is more the folks who will 100% give a good review when it's a paid review. Like that is more easily definable that's something that is enforceable.
Those
Whereas
are
we
people
can't
who
really say
those are people who I do know.
yes.
Yeah, unfortunately. The another one I'm thinking of though is situations where I hope that this can be influential here. I'm a bit skeptical that it can be, but we, for example, receive emails from places like Best Buy because they don't understand that the headphone show is part of the headphones.com
They're not
editorial, right?
familiar with our
They're not.
game.
Yeah, but we receive emails from them, and they say, for example, hey, we will send you this product. We will pay you a certain amount of money to do a review, and then you also get commissions from sales of this product. But here are the conditions under which this arrangement takes place. You're not allowed to say anything bad about this product. You're not allowed to, and it's stuff where you're like, really? That this is common practice? And I would hope that something like this can actually, you know, uh solve this problem. Actually, this was something where we were going to do a piece to kind of like, I think, I'm not sure if we did a piece or we were considering it, but we wanted to do a piece to try and expose some of this. We wanted to find maybe other examples, but one of the examples that we got was particularly egregious in this regard. And so my hope is that something like this can improve that.
It's gonna take I mean, like I have almost no hope whatsoever there, because the thing is, think about warranty void if removed stickers. Those have literally been against the law under the
Yeah.
Magnuson-Moss Warranty Act since 1968, I think. And they're still everywhere, right?
It's
Like
just a scare
people,
tactic.
well, no, it's because most people don't fucking know that. Like even a lot of the people at these firms, unless they're compliance lawyers who eventually get kicked to, don't know or care about that.
Mm-hmm.
So I suspect that unless there's a lot of big actions against companies for doing this, it's going to continue just as it was.
Yeah.
Kind of a shame.
Anyway, that's so. It's
Someone
cool
in
that
chat
this
says,
is.
how about guys who just grab the photos from the net and put out a YouTube review and they never had the units on hand?
I don't
Based?
think
Question
that's.
mark?
I don't think that's.
No, Blaine, not base.
No,
I feel
I
like
don't.
at this point you just hear anything controversial and your
But, like,
brain
are they
just flips the coin whether it's based or not.
Yes.
I mean, I think that it's a power move, you know?
Well, okay, but hold on.
All
So
right.
in that scenario, though, you don't that doesn't require that somebody be paid to do for that. Like, I think.
No.
So Griffin, correct me if I'm wrong, because again, I haven't looked into this. Is it to do with like when there's a condition of positive sentiment towards a thing, or is it
Yeah.
just okay? Yeah.
Yep.
I figured. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that's less based. I thought they were just like completely RNGing it, and honestly, that would be hilarious.
That
Like
would be funny if it was
if
true
someone just like
RNG.
new headphone came out, I'm going to prophecy how I think it would sound and feel and do a review of it. That would, oh come on, that would be based.
That would actually be really funny.
Yeah. Headphone
We should
prophecy
honestly
reviews.
do that.
That's
We should
the
do,
next
like,
channel that we create.
Precognitive reviews. We already have
Literally
precog.
precognition.
Yeah, no, we should. Honestly, here's the thing. I think that would be more accurate than you might think.
Oh yeah, no, I would be very shocked if it wasn't over 50%.
You could give yourself a score on how close your prediction was.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Shall we move on?
Yeah, let's do it. So now we can go to CanJam.
Okay. It's a weird little interjection, but all right. How was so things that you guys heard at CanJam? Do you guys want to talk about some of that, or just your CanJam experiences?
Well, we should
What
talk
was-
about both because there was plenty of both.
Okay. I gave my impression, so it's of one of the things. I have more impressions. I did a whole, right.
Well, you probably heard more than either of us did too.
Yeah, because you guys
were working the booth.
That's right.
Yeah, we were working the booth, so we didn't hear all that much.
Yeah.
I heard a lot of people trying to put on PUD phones.
Yes.
That was a real struggle.
Did
for
you
a
guys
lot of
listen to
people.
any of the PUD phones?
I listened to the big one
A
that I was
couple?
hoping people put on most of the
Old
show,
Thumpy?
which was Old Thumpy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, look, the
It's real
running
bad.
theme with all of those headphones that you wouldn't think of before you listen to them is that they're way more reasonable sounding than they should be.
Okay, then they should be is doing a lot of work there.
It is. It is something that is literally like a massive like 3 foot long barbell on your head should sound like absolute garbage.
Yeah.
Instead, it kind of sounds like a closed Porta Pro or something like that, where it's
Wow.
Okay,
like
but the thing
where it's like
is,
really down tilted.
a closed Porta Pro is absolute garbage because a Porta Pro is absolute garbage.
I hate you both. Anyway, but yeah, so the thing is that the impressions I was getting from listeners were unilaterally like, wait, that's not that bad.
Oh, that varies. I had a couple people who were just like, "Oh, that's fucking horrid."
Oh, okay,
Hey,
interesting.
shout out to Craig Stark in the chat.
Oh, Craig's in chat.
Oh, Craig.
It's
Love
they
that
really
guy.
did sound better than they should have.
Yeah.
Then they
He
should
proves
have.
that we all
as
have
Blaine said.
brains.
I would just like to say, in the last noise floor, we didn't have Blaine on, and we were talking about the new wireless Porta Pro, and chat roasted me for my terrible opinion that that on-ear headphones are cursed and that the Porta Pros are cursed. I'm very
Their
thankful to have
opinion is still cursed.
Blaine back to reinforce that opinion.
No,
I mean, chat will roast me too.
Yes, they
Also,
will.
just what we're talking about CanJam experiences, legitimately one of the absolute highlights was just getting to hang out with Craig at his lab.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Dude
I would
is
say that
so
is the
fucking
highlight.
cool. The
Definitely.
only reason it's not the singular highlight for me is that I really had fun talking shit with Dr. Olive too.
Yeah.
Sure, that's
Yeah.
fair. Yeah.
Sean
Oh
is
god,
the
this
world's
tangent was
greatest
so good,
shitposter.
actually.
So there was an on-ear headphone that I liked, and shoutouts to Adrian, who I think it was Adrian who
Yeah, he's
required
in chat, I think.
that I listen to it. Was the ETA02?
Oh.
No, that's not the one you heard. You heard a different
Oh.
one. You
Which
heard one
ETA
that
did I hear?
I don't know, but it was different from the, because I remember I heard that first, and then I was like skeptical. I was like, I've already heard it, and then he's like, no, this is a different one, and it was a different one.
Okay, the one I heard was really bad.
Yeah, the one like it was not the one you heard. This was actually a lot warmer. Actually, this is the one that Kyle reviewed, I believe.
Don't remember.
You tried the ADA. Is what he's saying. ADA. Anyway,
Adrian's Ada.
Yeah. So the ETA02 was an on-ear that I actually quite enjoyed. I don't know if you would like it, Blaine, because it was a bit on the it was a bit relaxed in the ear gain, a bit warmer, but it was
warm tilted
good
for sure.
Like
but not as bad as the Ada.
No, God no. I would not choose the Porta Pro over the O2. I would choose the O2.
I can't tell if I'm being trolled by chat. Somebody said, "What headphone is the top right dude wearing looks cool?" Am I? Is that me?
HE1000.
Yeah, I mean, like this is probably one of the top 10 most famous.
No, it's a new headphone. Nobody knows what it is. The prototype.
Yeah. Andrew, did you hate the comfort of O2 as well?
I didn't dislike it as much as other, because the problem is big head problems with on ears makes the pinna crush more significant, and the O2 didn't crush the pinna as substantially, right?
Okay.
I still don't like the on ear resting on the pinna aspect. That doesn't jive with me, but it didn't crush my pinna as much, so it wasn't as uncomfortable.
I'd like to apologize to Sasquatch Guy for thinking he was trolling. He's just new. I'm sorry, because people joke a lot about me being the HG800 guy, so I just wasn't sure if this was next level trolling.
Yeah. But yeah, I would agree for the most part. The O2 sounded reasonable, bit warm.
Capper says it does crush his pinna.
Yeah, no,
It's not my favorite
I
O2.
absolutely loathe
Northwest
the comfort
AV guy.
of that headphone.
Forever in my heart.
First of all,
For
the
whatever
pads
reason-
are just like thin foam discs around the actual grill of the driver, which on Adrian's unit was kind of like scuffed.
It
for
was a
lack of
bit
better
off.
term.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, it was just like a very heavy metal grill just resting directly on my ear. It was terrible. It was absolutely like no.
So this is interesting, because it's like I'm normally that person who can't stand it, and we had very different impressions of the comfort, which reinforces the reality that on-ear headphones are cursed and shouldn't exist. So
ETA headphones is in chat, so we can say that to his face. Stop making
ETA.
on-ear headphones; they shouldn't exist.
Yes, but I liked it. I liked it, and I would recommend it for on-ear stands. What else? Oh, the SJY. Horizon Closed.
I didn't listen to that.
Oh,
You
okay,
like that. Douglas liked that. I didn't like that.
I mainly want to get it in. I want to, spend actual proper time with it because I listened to it for like, a minute. But I spent a ton of time chatting with the guy from, I can't remember his name. I should remember it. That's my fault.
Jeff?
I'm terrible.
Jeff?
Is it?
Well, I'll give you a hint. His
It's
name
Jeff?
is Jeffrey Yin. SJY Audio stands for his initials.
How? Where's the S?
Well, I don't know what the S is. I'm assuming Jeffrey is his middle name, or alternatively, depending on his heritage,
Okay.
it may be that he has both a Chinese name and an English first name.
Okay. Anyways, it was lovely chatting with him, and he makes his own drivers, which is really cool.
He's a very nice guy as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, really enjoyed, and very knowledgeable, and has good ideas. Sir Jeffrey, yes,
Yeah.
Sir
I'm okay with
Jeffrey.
knighting him.
So I would love. He hasn't reached out to me yet by email. So, but if he's watching this, I would love to get those in and chat more with you about that stuff because it's really cool.
Yeah, I really wish that he would fix the design of his headphones, though, because he has the most
mechanical
ergonomics and just general feel. Because I've talked to him, his process is so fucking expensive, but the results do not look it. And that's a terrible combination.
He's the same person who does the headbands for DMS's project.
Yeah, and that's why they're all floppy.
the spinny around the ear thing.
Well, you can also, if you shake them, they go.
That, I mean, you could shake me, and I do that.
I mean, I'm willing to test that on stream.
Yeah, it depends how violently you shake.
Constantine was not floppy when picked up and shaken.
This is true.
He's not. He's
I witnessed it.
He's.
Oh, hey, Jeffrey's here. Hey, Jeffrey, what does the S stand for?
Good question. I'm trying to think if there's anything I heard in terms of over ears that were new. I heard the Azurus for the first time, and everyone was convinced I would not like that headphone, but I quite like that headphone.
Okay.
Yeah, like I don't know what you guys
it's because
are hearing.
The timbre shift is the thing that I imagine you would not.
Yeah, it's a slight problem, but like, yeah,
wait,
honestly, I thought
the
bass
name?
and mid range and treble were absolutely reasonable for the most part.
Jeff,
the ergonomics were a bit of a problem.
Right. Yeah, I noticed there is a difference where I'm obviously using these pads and I've EQ'd the shit out of it. I've got it to a place where I'm like, this is incredible because these are not like without EQ. Nobody should use these pads on this headphone. These are the Deconi. It just makes it sound just categorically low res, but the comfort is better, I find. And but I did notice in general there's a difference when you wear glasses. And so you're not using glasses, so I imagine the bass actually is a bit better for you.
Yeah, bass
one of these days I should do a podcast with no glasses, just be isolated from chat.
Yes, you should.
For chat's benefit.
I mean, listen,
did you hear any other over ears?
Without me, nobody is going to represent chat.
Can't tell if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah,
true.
No, because Rob will still be referenced.
Well, no, yeah. So Griffin will simp Rob.
Yeah,
but everyone else will get ignored.
Yes, and that would be a better stream.
Yeah, it's to incentivize everyone to get to Rob's level.
Exactly.
I'm negging with a purpose.
Yeah,
it's discrimination. Anyway,
correct.
For good.
So let's think.
Yeah, I tried lots of other over-ear headphones too. I tried.
Did you try the GSE Empyrean?
Yeah, I did.
I didn't. What did you think of it?
It sounds like it measures. Good.
Yeah, excellent.
It's like I listened to it with Constantine. So I listened to it and he was across from me, and then he listened to it, and like I didn't describe it at all. I just handed it to him, and then he goes, "Clean," in typical Constantine fashion. Yeah,
I love that, man.
So yeah, that's how it sounds to me. It's a bit
just
on the
tell me he
side.
didn't listen to Gents on it.
Oh fuck no, I have no idea. But no, actually,
because he does. It's fucked up.
He's a gent head. Interesting.
Yeah, he's very into it. It's fucked up.
I like Periphery, older Periphery. I don't really care too much for that genre, but apparently it's not a genre. But it's so the Aperio GSE edition is a bit warm, but smooth, relaxed. I think one of the issues people had, so the original Aperio had more of like a editorialized kind of coloration thing going on that had some extra spiciness in the treble, and for people who found it to be a bit not versatile enough, this makes it super versatile, and smooths it out a bit. So overall, yeah, I liked it.
Yeah, I didn't get to hear that, but I heard the Bravura for the first time.
You didn't like
Wasn't a
Bravura?
fan. I don't know. I don't know what people are on
we
about.
have the same thing with Bravura, right? Where you put it on and just immediately
Okay,
you hear the fucking
it could sound
wobble of the
however it
drivers.
wants. It could sound however it wants, but when you put it on your head, the occlusion
know that.
effect is so invasive and immediate. And it's
Dude,
like
that thing
there's
has
a
like 10 dB of
particular-
acoustic gain in some
yes,
frequencies for
at like
outside
one
noise. It's
frequency in the low mid
wonder-
range, there's like
I
a
wonder if-
band pass where you hear like everything in the outside filtered through like one frequency, and it's
wonder if-
super
horrible.
annoying.
I'm not getting that because I have the glasses that are. Well, I guess Blaine has glasses too, but
Yeah, but mine are very thin. Like I have thin
so are
bendy
mine.
titanium
Oh
frames.
no, but no. So does mine are intended to be thin, but
They're
maybe yours are
not
even
that
thinner.
thin. Like mine are quite thin, and they're quite thin.
I'll show you how thin my glasses are if you show me how thin yours are.
But yeah, I didn't
Who
get to
has
hear
more
Aperio,
audiophile
but
glasses?
apparently it has that same kind of
It has similar coupling
acoustic
to the
scheme,
yeah.
where it's a rather surprisingly closed volume, which I was not expecting at all when I put that headphone on. But oh man, I did not like Bravura because of it. It also just wasn't like on its own sound merit. It was like fine. It's a little bright. Mids weren't where I wanted them, but it was whatever. What else did I hear? I got to hear the Nightjar Duality, the I guess final tuning, which is it's a $3,000 2 dynamic driver IEM with switches, or one switch, that goes for a very, 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 very bassy tune. I think for the bass heads, it's it'll do what it says on the tin, but I got to be honest, I was more of a fan of like the older prototypes. The structure of the ear gain changed fairly significantly on the new one, and now it kind of has
a bit of a mess up.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you have that much bass, so what they did was they raised kind of like the 3 to 4K region a little bit.
Oh, good, they V-shaped it.
Just slightly. I mean, so the treble above that is actually rather well controlled, but it does have kind of like that ear gain shift thing that Andrew was talking about with the Azuris, where there's just a little bit of that kind of grating, concrete-like hardness to the attack of certain things.
Yeah, I've never thought of it like that, but yeah.
Yeah, no, but it does. It's like a metal hammer hitting concrete. Every time I've encountered an elevation like this, where it's like elevated at like 3.5 to 4 kilohertz, yeah, it just makes certain things sound really hard and unpleasant. And Duality has a crap load of bass to offset that, so it's not like a complete deal breaker. But for me, it did make me prefer it less than the prototypes. But I'm not the target market either, because I would never buy something with that much bass.
Did you hear Sebastian Kendra's headphone?
I did.
I didn't. I'm also not the target market for that.
I am not, but it was remarkable. For anybody
It's,
who wants the bass violence.
Very bassy.
Yeah, that is the real bass violence right there. Like that puts other bassy headphones to shame.
Yeah, that and the Eris, I would say, but Kendra's is Kendra, I guess is how he prefers to go. Is
I'm calling him Kendra from now on.
Well, that is his surname.
Kedra, not Kendra.
No, at least there's an N. There was an N in his head-fi badge.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, I'm calling him Kendra from now on.
Yeah. So anyway, Sebastian's headphone was, I think, better tuned than the Eris, because the Eris has treble that.
So far.
The Eris has treble that bothers me.
Yeah, So Skedra's thing was also way bassier, and also had the bass shelf that started below 200 hertz. It started like 160 or something like that,
Mhm.
or 170, whereas the Eris is like 400 hertz. So the bass Brise was in the right spot, or not. I still would prefer it lower, but like it was in a significantly better spot for that level of bass.
To be
I
clear,
also
it massacres music. Like this
it
is a
does,
headphone
yeah.
that is unfit for listening to
Well,
music.
but like I was listening to like I don't know, like Noisia or some of the electronic stuff that he had there, and it was just, I was like, yeah, like for this stuff, like this is the headphone you'd want, because it's, it's absurd. Also, he has. Did you listen to it with the less bass, like the brighter tilt pads? Because he had two sets of pads. One was
I
a
listened to
lower
it with
warm.
both pads.
The brighter tilt one and the switch off actually was significantly more tolerable than with the switch on. I found with the switch on, it just obliterated everything. Like it didn't matter what I was listening. It was just like a,
I mean, the thing is, like, it's viable to listen to. It's just you have to be looking for interesting. His surname is Kedra,
Told
according
you.
to Adnan. I
I
mean, there
think it's
was an
Kedra.
N on his badge, which probably
No, they
implies
might
that
have just
someone.
typoed the
I mean, they
badge.
Yeah,
typoed Cameron's thing as Semirun or whatever.
Semarin, yeah.
Yeah.
Semarin Oat.
Yeah.
All right.
Uh,
I mean, I was wondering why he would be Skedra if he had an N in it, and also
but
why
I'm still
Cole
gonna
would be
call him
named
from now on.
Kendra.
He,
No, I
yeah,
mean Kendra's funny.
Sauron
I'm going
Oatly.
with it.
Yeah.
What was that thing? But
I
that
heard the
headphone
new
was like the least bad gigabass headphone I've ever
Yeah,
heard,
exactly. I would agree. The least bad
which is
gigabase. But
which is
the
also
thing
what I
is,
told
get
Sebastian.
guess what? Guess what? It was tuned with measurements, with data. And I know this because I sent him the DFHRTF and was kind of telling him, like, this is kind of what you want to look for, blah blah blah, right? So,
No, that would explain why
it
it was
yeah,
meaningfully less
it
fucked in the
it
mids and treble than it could have been.
turns out that it is useful to have data there, and to measure and to design your headphones with measurements in mind. Even if you're not going to make it match a target, right? Just to consider it is that's already a step in the
Yeah,
right
you can
direction.
make a bass
Phil
violence
said
headphone,
that
then
Michael
even
from
the
Symphonium
craft
had
version.
Milkle on his badge.
Yet what?
His badge said Milkle.
Speaking of those guys, that was probably the coolest thing from the entire show. I don't know if we can talk about it yet, but like
Yeah, I don't think
we
we can
can't.
talk about
But
that. I
hanging
do
out with
want to
those
talk
guys
about. I did
was
hear their
Yeah.
new prototype. Did you hear it?
okay. The starts with a C, right?
Comment.
Yeah, I didn't hear it.
Got it.
Yeah, but
It's
just say hanging out with those guys was one of the coolest things from that whole show. They
yeah.
are experts in, like, just the way that they speak to one another. I was like, wow, that's
Yeah.
they are
Felix and Mikol, shout out to them both,
yeah,
are
they're
man,
experts in
they
wisdom.
are exceedingly competent
Yes,
people
yes,
at what they
exactly.
do.
Yeah,
And yeah, I mean, it's always nice to see all of them.
yeah,
Them two, Howard, Gordon, Gary,
hmm,
the Nightjar guys,
yeah,
Chang,
yeah.
and Subtonic people like Cornelius, it was his first time at the show. Yeah, it was great to see all of them. But I did try the Comet. I did not like that IEM at all. Like, I actually kind of think it's probably my least favorite of theirs. Yeah, I just didn't see really like any sort of appeal to it. It had kind of like a cloudy bass shelf that, was over 150 hertz in corner frequency. The upper mid range had that kind of early rise that I'm not usually a fan of, and it was too bright. Like it was basically like everything I don't like in an IEM. So I hope that they spend a little more time cooking with that one. But yeah, I was not a
I
fan.
think well, I mean, they said that you wouldn't. It wasn't one for you. They knew.
No, no. Felix
I thought I overheard them
actually thought I was
saying,
gonna like
"Oh,
it.
really? Oh, maybe I'm
Yeah,
thinking of a different one then that they thought you wouldn't like." But
maybe
no,
Titan. I don't know.
yeah, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, we did learn that maybe they don't have the best idea of what you and I are looking for, because when we were because they had the idea that we were looking for something Harmon-esque.
Oh yeah, right. But that's because we do talk about Harmon a lot, and we do
We
focus on
do.
graphs a lot.
Yeah.
So if somebody is not following, that closely what we're doing, with population average and stuff like that, it's like,
Yeah, someone who's too busy making
Karen
IEM
really does not like it when we say that.
I know.
does not
I
like
know.
what?
Can't we
He
just say
hates-
the ISO HRTF?
Yeah, he would hate that even more. Actually, I don't know if he'd hate it more, but he would also hate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think it's like, population average doesn't sound special. It sounds like
It sounds
and
average.
now, yeah, and but that's we're saying that is special. That is good.
Well, might have to choose a wider population soon.
Yeah. I did think. Do you guys want to talk about because for me there were so many cool things about this CanJam that I did like. They were new and different from the previous one, and it didn't have as much to do with the actual gear.
Like what?
It had to do with things like Craig's MRI
Yes,
lab.
let's talk about Craig. Let's talk
And
about
also this Blaine seminar and the Olive seminar, like go do that kind of stuff was
There were a couple more headphones that we tried, I think, that we didn't mention. Did we
Let's
mention
keep
the
Carbon
going.
2.
GC?
I did
Let's
try the
keep going with
Carbon 2.
headphones.
If you guys
I didn't. No.
so
I
Carbon
wanted to,
scouting?
but I didn't because they tore down so fast.
Carbon 2. So for me, original Carbon had too much ear gain. It was sort of the LCD5-ish kind of tuning, and I get like
Yeah.
I was even talking to Constantine about this, and Constantine's like, "Yeah, it's like perfect." Blaine, do you need a nap? You're right?
Listen, I got fucking con disease. Like,
Yeah, me
is-
too. Me too. Yeah, we were talking about
well,
this.
the difference between us is that when you get sick, you vomit for the next 10 years. When I get sick, I sleep for the next 10 years.
It's true. This is true. Yep.
Wait, so Andrew, you were saying Constantine said Carbon 2 is perfect?
Carbon 1 had
Oh,
the
okay.
right amount. It was good for him. And he
What's
didn't like
interesting is
Carbon.
I saw that man's HRTF yesterday, and he has a little bit of a honky HRTF.
Bro, do be
Like
honking.
it has a
He is
little bit
honking.
more.
Where did you see his
3 to 4K.
HRTF?
Dude is 3K maxing.
Where did you see it? Or was it
He
from?
sent it to me. Once I was once I made my new skill public, he sent me his
Oh,
blocked canal
right,
HRTF that he got done at, I assume, the lab.
Oh, blocked canal HRTF.
Blocked canal.
Yeah,
But I
so
mean,
we
it
don't
still
have
has information in that region, and his was at the top end of the average.
Okay.
Well, what was notable was if you look at him in the distribution, I don't know if is it doxing to pull up someone's HRTF? But
I don't know if he wants that information public.
We can do it afterwards.
What was interesting is that his at like 1K he falls towards the bottom of the distribution, whereas at 4K he falls towards the top. So he has a really big honk shelf.
Oh, interesting.
So I would say the data, I guess, in that like kind of 1 to 2 kilohertz region, like obviously the measurement is windowed and the space they're in isn't perfectly anechoic in the mid range, I think.
Yeah.
So it could be a
Also,
little different there and be a little bit closer to the average, but even so, yeah, it would be.
Also, you should send me the
just
impulse
in case
responses for Constantine's ones so that I can zero stuff them so that we can get a bit more of the low frequencies back.
Yeah, sure. I'll send you that after this.
It's we made a new one in the Oratory 1990 lab, so we have.
I love that video of him just like being like coming out of the MRI.
It's a little bit like Han Solo and Carbonite,
Yeah.
Speaking
sorry,
of
wait.
Carbon, so
Yeah.
Carbon 2, what they did is they basically took Carbon 1 and then added their SLAM technology, which is more bass, and it sounds like that. It sounds like it has more bass. But to me, I kind of felt like, again, because I'm an ear gain lit, I kind of wish that they had taken down some of the ear gain. To me, it's like this was an opportunity to kind of step back from the ledge a little bit on some of that ear gain, and or just like it doesn't even need to be stepped back. It just needs to be kind of balanced out with the rest of the treble, because I found the rest of the treble to be, pulled
Dark.
back. Yeah, like you can do it in a number of ways. I feel like this was an opportunity to do that, and they didn't. So that's why I'm like, well, yeah, they added the bass, but like I kind of wish that they'd done more. Personally, the bass is cool,
How big
It's
of a
cool.
shelf would you say it is? Would you say it's like
Uh,
Harman-esque?
I didn't hear them side by side. No.
Okay, so it's not like 6 decibels of bass. It's maybe closer to the 3 or
Honestly, I
4.
couldn't. No, I mean it's hard to say because I didn't have them side by side. I would say that it was significant enough where I thought the bass is now better. Like I'm a bass head. I like a bit of bass, contrary to what
Mhm.
people think. It was satisfying for me for the bass level. So that wasn't the thing that I was like whinging about. It was more that this was an opportunity to do more. And like the other thing too, though, is like they did have it set up on different equipment, and this is an E-stat,
Mm,
and there may be something there about like
I don't know.
uh, equipment pairing. I don't know enough about that, but um, they did say that they wanted to send me one, so I am very curious to actually evaluate
Cool.
it. The problem is I don't have an energizer, so I need to figure that out.
We should get you an energizer or like a
Yeah,
speaker amp and an SRD7 or
because I
something like
need
that.
more things in my space
I
currently.
wouldn't really recommend an SRD7. Like, I mean, Transformers are not the most linear of devices, to be perfectly frank.
Valid and true. I mean, neither are
Uh,
speaker amps that a lot of people choose to use with these devices. So yeah, you're
yeah.
All too
double
true. All
right.
too true.
Uh,
Um,
Did
as far
did
as
we say
other,
anything about the GT?
I
Because
was
like
just gonna bring that up.
Dimitri was there the whole fucking time.
Yeah, which was great. I was glad because like in
yeah,
New
Oh,
York he was there, but I
Dimitri.
didn't really get to meet him or talk to him. But I
yeah.
actually got to talk to him a little bit this show, and he's a good guy.
He
Love
was
me some
great.
Dimitri. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
He's a gem. Um,
yeah. So the Headphone 2 GT. So same chassis as the original Headphone 2 with minor adjustments. Like the logo on the headband is now like stamped into the material. There's a nice little logo on the kind of cup articulator that rocks it back and forth. But otherwise, if you were looking at it from the outside, it would look basically identical.
yeah.
But it does have a new sort of acoustic mesh front damping from the look
Two
of
sets
it,
of pads, different pads.
as well
Yeah.
as two different pad options, which are uh, per Freddie, the head employee, acoustically near identical, um, which they were very similar.
Very close.
They were very close. The only differences I was able to detect was the leather pad having a little bit more spice in the ear gain, like a little bit more 3-4 kilohertz. And then there's like a peak around 5K that was a little more intense on it. Um,
Mhm.
but other than that, they were very close, and I think that might have something to do with the fact that like the foam they use for the inside for both pads is on the denser side of foams.
Mhm.
Well, and
So like the wrap,
one of them is hybrid and one of them is leather.
Yep.
well, for the wrapping material, yes, but I'm saying like for the foam internals, like they were both like not super soft foam. Um,
You're talking
so
about
I'm
like the
wondering if like
compliance or the
I'm wondering if them
There's
both
also
being
the
the same
factor
inner
of the
material is
weave
playing a significant factor.
of the cloth. Like that's why Duconi's velour pads are very high. Like they tend
you
to
call them
result in
Veller?
yeah, because otherwise I mix them up with Joshua Velour.
Okay. Who was there, by the way?
He was there.
Yeah,
He's
first time
also a
meeting him.
freak
Why?
because he doesn't like Thai food.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Oh
That's
God,
fucked up.
yeah.
Disqualified from anything of taste.
Oh God,
Gonna
yeah.
carry that grudge till the day I die.
Yep.
Rightfully so, I think. That is
That's
a.
that's just
I mean, the only one he's hurting is himself. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
just feel bad.
yeah.
Anyway,
Also doesn't like avocados.
Oh,
Can't
he
trust
doesn't
him.
like fruit. I asked him if he was allergic to strawberries because he was picking around them on his breakfast, and he just said he doesn't like fruit.
Well, okay. I can understand being particular about fruit.
No, but just not
I feel
liking
Not
like
liking
fruit.
any of it.
strawberries are like
That's a pretty
cheat
innocuous
codes,
one.
though.
How
Like
do you know?
food should not taste like that. Like that is candy. Actually, that
Yeah.
is not fruit.
If they're ripe. If they're unripe, they can be a bit.
They were
So
ripe.
yeah,
Oh,
sure.
okay. Then that's who doesn't like
Interesting.
strawberries.
Okay, back to the
Oh.
Headphone 2 GT. What did you guys actually think of the sound?
So I've heard a version before the CanJam
You
one.
didn't hear the CanJam ones?
I don't know. So I listened to one of them, but it was very, very brief. And I think it
Mm.
was with the leather pads and it was like at the very end. Um, so I need to, spend more time listening. But for the impression of before the show, and again, I don't know if it's identical. I like it a lot. It sounds like an Empyrean II to me.
Oh, it sounded much better than Empyrean II to me. I get where you're drawing the comparison and like the kind of like
strong
mid-range.
strong mid bass focus.
Yeah.
Lot
No,
has
it was
the correct ear gain.
so much better than Empyrean II to me. Like especially with the suede pads. It had way less of that like 6K.
Oh yeah, no, it's smoother up there. I just mean
and like way less of the, not way less actually, just moderately less like 11 kilohertz type stuff.
Yeah. So overall,
yeah, no, I
like
want
it a lot better than
one of those to review. I want
Yeah.
to spend more time with the suede pad version specifically because
So
it's a little warm in the mid range, but I found it fairly nice overall.
It's a headphone that doesn't, like, to me, it's one that doesn't need EQ. It's one of the few
I would say that about the
ones.
suede one. The leather one was a little
Yeah.
bit shouty for me.
But the thing is, like, it also doesn't measure like straightforwardly linear, like in the bass, because it does have a
No.
forward mid bass, or I
Yep.
don't know what we call that, like mid upper bass.
Yeah, like
Kind of like that Empyrean-ish quality, but
definitely.
I think it kind of works because it has, and this is just me.
It has more
don't
ear
wanna
gain though.
It has more ear gain. I think it kind of works because it, like, that extra forward kind of bass presence that it has is kind of balanced out by the extra upper treble that it has as well. So in that
Yeah.
respect, I think it is also Empyrean like, but it
It's
definitely
like
has
a 650
more
if
ear
you
gain.
turn the contrast up 200%.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
like more mid bass,
exactly.
more ear gain, but they do kind
Yeah.
of work as balancing forces against each other.
Yep. That's how I would think of it. So like, the thing is, I'm actually a bit like hesitant about reviewing it because this is one of those examples where, like, I was sending Dimitri data and kind of like working with them to be like, hey, maybe, but like they did all this. I was not like part of the tuning process.
Yeah, there
I
was
was
no
just
guarantee they
giving
were gonna do
feedback.
exactly what.
But I
Yeah,
still
or
don't
that
really wanna,
whatever you advised them to do was going to like
yeah.
be feasible for the final product.
Yeah, but
Um,
I am just more curious what other people think, because I have
Yeah.
heard the various different ones along the way, and I think they ended up with the best one. Like, that's my sense of
Yeah.
it. And the
It
cool
was
thing
one of the
about
less disappointing headphones I heard at the show.
that's high praise. The
It is, yeah.
the thing that I liked about that process was that they were so keen on getting people's impressions, like, not just mine as
Yeah.
well. Like, they were
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
"Hey, I want everybody to hear this. I want, you know, um,
Yeah.
I remember I took it to the office and had, Taryn listen to the various different ones as well, and like they just wanted feedback and they wanted to make adjustments based on feedback, which I think was like that's what you want. You want people
Yeah.
who are developing stuff to listen to people and give the people what they want. So
Yeah.
Head
From
is
the
really good about
people who
that.
were just go ahead.
Oh, well, I was just gonna. The anecdote I had is that I described their cable as fucking terrible to Dimitri, and he conveyed that directly to Freddie, who was like,
But you said
basically,
that about the premium cable, right? The copper looking
Yeah.
one? Yes, that
Yeah,
thing
that one
was
sucked.
terrible, and the normal cable is much better.
I told them this, and they're like, okay, well, that one we're not going to fix. And then they're like, do you have any other feedback? And I basically tore apart everything about the construction and ergonomics. And they're like, okay, well, that stuff we're working on. So
yeah,
get hyped for Headphone
Okay.
3. It might be good.
Yeah.
I'm hyped for Headphone 2 GT. I just wish that the headband could be more conventional because it did this. Everybody said the same thing about it. And because it's the same as the one from the previous one, which is that once they got it in the right adjustment spot, it was okay. It was good, but now I still have some issues with it. But like people
It's
said that,
pretty finicky. Getting it
yeah,
right,
getting it
is
there,
not
getting it right
intuitive to learn
is
how to
not
use
intuitive.
it.
And I wish that the strap bit could be wider. I think
Yeah,
that if they made this, and maybe people can do that, right? Like, because it's actually a pretty easy thing to just
Take
yeah,
off.
it's like
it's just a
piece,
strap.
right?
You can
It's a straight, yeah. And maybe there's something Capper can do, but like I wish that it would be wider. I did take a headphone to at some point and just swapped out the headband with a more conventional one, and I preferred it. So
Yeah, I'd be interested to see if someone could do something with that. But yeah, so like this is my first time working at like arguably one of the busiest booths at CanJam.
Probably
And
the
whenever people came
busiest.
over to hear that headphone, I like got a little bit of panic because like, oh God, what if I have to adjust the headband? And I did one time and it was just like was not good.
I'm gonna be honest. I just showed people how it worked, and then was just like, "Well, this is your problem now."
It is, and that's the thing. It's a particularly difficult one to demo for people, right? Because
Yeah.
if you go into a show, you're like, all right, you don't have that much time to,
Yep.
I mean, we didn't really time pressure. I mean, particularly people with the fucking headphone. If someone had the headphone, I
Yeah,
would happily
exactly.
give them 5 minutes just to figure out how to fit that thing on their head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I
but
mean,
there is
people
also take it.
where we're
Yep.
like, you need to get off or anything like that. Like
There-
in
there's
my
I
head.
don't think
Obviously, I didn't say that out loud, but
we never really do that. But the thing is, like, I feel people I mean, this is maybe just me, but like when I'm listening to something and there's a line behind me, I do feel like, okay, well, people want to get in here. Like, I obviously feel like a dickhead regardless because like I don't want to. Well, because I am one, but like because I don't want to uh get in the way of people, regular people's
sure.
uh
Yeah, yeah.
you know opportunities to hear stuff, especially given the myriad of things I do get to hear outside of the show. So for me, I don't want to be butting in, but like I can only imagine what it's like for other people in the hot seat when there's a line behind them.
I
Yeah.
honestly, I think, I don't know. This time, I can only think of like 2 people who were at the booth while I was there, where I was like, "Will you just leave?" And
Honestly, there's
last New
only
York was so much worse. There
Oh,
were a few
really?
people who were there for like 45 minutes while there were lines, and I'm just like, "Do you
Yeah,
have no self-awareness whatsoever?"
it was Dr. Olive, wasn't it?
No, the thing is, Sean
yeah.
is actually quite conscientious
He is.
and tends
Yeah.
to just listen to whatever he's given because he doesn't give a shit, which is
Oh,
one
by
of
the
his
way,
best
Andrew,
traits.
I got Sean's approval on the Hexa.
And we got it on the Mirai.
Yes. Oh, but that was last
Well,
year.
he said that the Mirai, he could see how people would like it. On the Hexa, he said
Okay,
that it was good.
that's not as high of praise because that's what he
Okay.
said about the Nova this time. What he said about the Hexa was that it was balanced and he couldn't detect any overt coloration.
And actually, this is one of the outcomes of the CanJam presentation from Sean with the IEM stuff, which is I was surprised that it was the same people because I thought sorry to back up for the IEM research he had the Harman target that was tested, and then there was the Sound Guys target which was tested, and the Sound Guys target is kind of a proxy for JM1 with some filters. I'm not sure which one we would say, but like it's pretty close. And they're quite different from one another, but people liked them similarly, right? They were statistically tied. What do you guys? You guys are having a giggle.
I'm
Nothing,
laughing at
just some silliness.
throw Dr. Olive and Olive in a Warwick soundproof booth for a steel cage match. No fighting, children.
Yeah. So, anyways, I thought that the IEM stuff was very interesting because at his presentation, because well, there's a number of things about his presentation that was interesting, including the fact that Harman wasn't even aware that he was doing it, which we should probably talk about as well. But we really are fortunate to have a person like him, continuing to be interested in this stuff and researching it. But the outcome of the IEM research was, or one of the conclusions was, that he thinks maybe some of it needs to be adjusted, and there's
So I will say, he didn't say this, but I feel the whole time through that, I was just like, aren't we just kind of at the noise floor at this point? Like,
well, because it's not enough. There's like 30 something participants, right?
well, there were, but what I mean is like, we have just sort of results that are bouncing around a bit. We have like a little bit of like, we are
Yeah.
in the fuzz zone of where I think that finding the mean or the median preference may no longer be useful. I mean,
I
Sean
kind of
agrees,
agree.
obviously,
Yeah.
because he's doing all the segmentation stuff primarily.
Well, and this was interesting because he had, and correct me if I'm misreading this, but like there's the original Harman target that he had sort of transposed to the 5128, right? And people were testing that, and then he also had Sound Guys. So it's like there's those two different ways, and you could see that like Harman had way more bass and way more treble. Way more ear gain, right? And then with the Sound Guys one, it was less on both, but there is a proportionality to both as far as bass and treble are concerned. That's the takeaway that I get. Is like it kind of, you can have anything there, especially given that the same people preferred both similarly. And then you had the MOA stuff, which showed that actually when the bass is different, the level of ear gain is different as well. So it just further corroborates that idea of like what really this signals is people like proportional bass and treble, not specifically one result. And I think that's, to me, it's uncontroversial. It's kind of obvious, but also now we have the things actually saying that, you know?
We also have, and this is something that, and I never truly bury the hatchet. I just set it down. So pertinent to our conflict with ratings, we have some quantification of the variation of ratings given by listeners, and it's fucking huge. Like, that's something that we had this study that we haven't in several of the previous ones, where we actually saw some of the range of the ratings that people gave, and it's fucking enormous. Like, to the point where it is useless to take a single data point from a single person unless you have like thousands of people to average it out.
Yeah.
And that's assuming there's no deterministic effect there.
Yeah, I mean, another distinction with this test was that the Harman badge of trained in this test is different than tests prior, where there were no actual listening tests.
This was
behind the label.
So self-reported trained, I believe, right?
So
well, we know for a fact that at least
there are trained listeners from older studies.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, we know that because we know one of them who won't tell us his listener number.
Yes, I've blocked him on Discord because I do not want to hear him speak about his preferences without disclosing them anymore. It's annoying. But yeah, he does it just to piss me off. But yeah, so there's a little bit less of the kind of insight we might have gotten prior, where we can see kind of the difference between trained and untrained listeners, and how that might deviate, because most of the listeners were trained per the new paradigm, which is basically completing a series of PowerPoints, which I wouldn't say is the same.
It's not Harman How to Listen.
I wouldn't assume it gives people a similar level of discernment of certain things about audio, namely frequency specific magnitude gain.
It doesn't give them Frank Jackson knowledge. Bingo.
Yeah.
Which is,
But overall, yeah, I think we all agree that the big takeaway from this is that it reinforces yet again that people like more bass and less treble.
And that again, for me, the takeaway, I mean, we knew that, but the takeaway here is a reinforcement that what people like is proportional bass and treble. Like whatever that ratio is, it makes sense, and people seem to like it.
Well, and it's not necessarily constant across people what relationship they want. Like, that's one of the things where the MOA thing was quite interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot we can drill into. Like, I would love to do a whole stream just about Sean's presentation, because there's so many interesting threads to pull on there. Like the fact that he thinks that with a gentler bass shelf or bass rise, which is more slope-like,
so like a wider Q. Yeah,
so lower Q. He found that he, like testing himself, preferred a lower level of bass.
Yeah.
Which, of course, is more congruent with the normal headphone response, right? It's very rare to have a very high Q bass feature, particularly on an open headphone.
Yeah.
But actually, this is something which people complain about quite a lot with headphones, but I mean, maybe this is actually a positive result. Maybe the need for such a high shelf is an artifact.
Yeah, because it was...
That's just what they had in the first studies.
Yeah, and he said before that this was kind of like something derived from the idea of like subwoofer crossover, which is where it would have been placed, and that has that kind of response. But in headphones, if there's no need for that, if you can do a sloping rise, I'd be very curious.
What I really want to do, and I really think we should actually get on this. I'm talking to our software guy about how difficult it will be to set up just a really basic software for some MOA testing. I would really like to see if people adjust a slope and two shelves the same way, right? Like if there's a similar response or not, because that's something that Sean has tested separately but never together, so we don't know how the same listener will adjust those two. And then once they have dialed in,
different Q, correct?
Yes. Well, wait, what do you mean?
So like in this last study, Sean used 2 shelves as a tilt with Q of
Yeah.
4 each at different frequency
0.4,
values.
but yes.
Oh, sorry, what did I say?
Yeah,
You
you
said
said 4.
4.
Oh,
Be
good.
very
Sorry
yeah.
about that. Yes, 0.4, so quite wide. But yeah, I would be interested to see how that is tested against the traditional kind of Harman shelf filters.
Yeah, the second order filters. I would be very, and like I think we can do that. Like that's something that, knock on wood, I would really love to see us get done in the next 6 months. Just with like 10 people or something, but
Yeah.
just enough to have some idea. But, and then once having what people prefer for each of those, I really want to do just an A/B comparison between them where people have to pick which one sounds better.
So here's a question for you guys, and this is only sort of related. Um, I, given that, so we have a sense of what people prefer, but for bass and treble, right? Traditionally,
Roughly.
it would have been with that bass specific style of bass shelf, right? But given that there's now some question around slope versus shelf, or basically the corner frequency and how wide the Q is there, how low the Q is. Um, do you think it merits having two, like say there's an outcome here where you have similar, like similar to the IEM research where you have two different results that are different from one another that are similarly preferred, right? Um, does it merit having two separate indicators of good, one for closed back, one for open back, given what's feasible for
Oh,
closed backs versus open backs? Sean seems to
Mm,
think there's no, like right now. So I'll explain why this is interesting. Right now, we have an indication with the preference bounds that incorporates the shelf rather than a slope, right? So the other way to look at this would be to say, well, we would just have the preference bounds be a sloped feature rather than a shelf feature, and the shelf fits inside, you know. And I'm wondering, like which makes more sense to do here.
I mean, I think to answer that, we actually need to. That's why I want to do the experiment I want to do. I want to figure out
Yeah,
which of the methods of adjustment results in greater user preference, basically. Because that's something that we don't know right now. Like we have basically a couple of different MOA studies that yielded somewhat different but generally congruent results, but we don't know what method of adjustment actually results in the response that is most preferred on average. So
yeah,
that's something that we would need to test. And then once we know that, then that can be the basis of the tolerance mask, whatever it is.
sure. Yeah, and
For
like
I really
if
don't like the idea of different for closed and open though, because you can do like there are tuning tricks for everything, right? Like
yeah,
I mean the fucking even acoustically, the ARIA organic exists, right? You can do a high Q shelf.
yes, but it's also not at the same. It's not the same at level in the bass remotely.
Sure.
Um,
But I mean that's not necessarily the point though. Like you can still get
yeah,
features like these. And I don't think that we should set a lower bar
for the
for
yeah,
for
yeah.
open headphones than for closed. Like I don't think that's a good idea.
Well, especially if the outcome is that the bounds shift to a more slope like result. I mean, I guess it doesn't matter, right? But in either case we shouldn't do that. But it's more that I'm more thinking of it in terms of like you have very different results that are similarly preferred in the IEM stuff. And I could just as easily see that happening for over your headphones. Um, so I and like or for slope versus shelf, right? Because maybe the same people are maybe really what people are indexing for, scoring for, isn't necessarily slope versus shelf, but proportional bass and treble level that matches their overall preference for that.
Well, no, no. I mean that one we can say almost with certainty because of the segmentation paper. Bingo for anyone doing that one. But remember when I was resampling that data back in
Yeah.
August and I think early September? There were a number of headphones that were flat bass that were very highly preferred that had, and those ones just had very low levels of treble,
Hmm. Yeah.
including the HD800, a famously low treble headphone.
Yeah. Famously warm, famously.
It is warm. Cope.
And of course, as we all know, you can't eschew that gum without popping bubbles.
is that Rob Hawk?
Yep.
Yeah, that's Rob Hawk.
I wanted to talk, and I don't know if this is completely derailing your cards here, Griffin. I wanted to talk about Blaine's presentation because that
I mean, no, that was CanJam. That was
it
absolutely
was
CanJam.
this
Yeah.
presentation was so cool things about it. This presentation was entertaining for people, but also the room was packed. Also, a
Yeah, I was
good
surprised
sign.
by that.
Yeah, everybody seemed to very much enjoy it, and we're also kind of like hopeful about it, wanted more of it, because it did a lot, I think, to kind of bridge the gaps that people have in their minds about like measurement crowd versus, like it doesn't describe my experience. And, there are a lot of people, I think, to me, it was a nice signal that, hey, there are a lot of people who are in that camp of like, we want to use data, as you put it, we want to use data, but we don't want to be limited to this paradigm. Um, and so I was very encouraged by that. Um, I don't know, like, where we wanna really start delving into any of the specifics of that
I mean, I
talk.
wasn't there, so
Well,
But
metaphorically,
you
I
know it.
think that ultimately, well, Griffin hasn't seen the actual more recent one. The one that Griffin heard was more
More verbose.
philosophical.
Ooh,
yes,
joy.
it was
Yeah.
like I'm gonna do this, and then I'm gonna do this, and then I'm gonna do this.
I do wanna say my favorite part of the whole presentation was the Constantine interjections.
Oh yeah, I mean Constantine always interrupts me, and to be fair, I always interrupt him.
Yes.
I mean, at this point, we're basically fucking joined at the hip. I'm trying to fucking fly him into Dallas so that I'll have him there to interrupt on that seminar too. I want it on the record. I knew that was going to happen to the extent that I actually had a prompt for that in one of my slides, but he jumped in before I got to that prompt.
Of course he did.
Yeah.
No, I mean, from a there's like two separate things there, right? This is the problems I see in the community, which the metaphor I'd like to go with is I think that we have kind of a young Hegelian's problem in terms of the folks who are
No one is gonna understand that.
I'm so glad you went there.
I just wanted to bother Griffin. Oh.
Bingo for anyone who has Griffin gets mad about philosophy.
Yep. No, but I think we have a problem where we have two small groups of people who are real absolutists about an interpretation of the current body of the research, and people who are real absolutists about rejecting any kind of audio research, who are a very small portion of the overall community. Like the commanding majority of people are much more syncretic than that. But we give a lot of attention to these so-called objectivists and subjectivists, even though almost nobody is like, I don't believe in any measurements, or I have a measurement, so everything you perceive is wrong. Like almost everyone is like, yeah, no, there's almost certainly a correlation between measurements and perception, but that doesn't mean that the interpretation of the measurements we currently do covers literally everything.
I'm curious if you so to me, so much of this solves the problem of the tonal technical dichotomy, right? Like, it basically is to help.
Fake.
Hmm?
Fake.
What
It
do you
is
mean?
fake.
It is fake.
It's not real. But
Yeah.
okay, do you guys think that what do you think? Do you think that group is larger than the zealot group?
Oh yeah, I mean, because the thing
I
is,
think so too. Yeah.
so just for the people's context, I delineated, and I'm going to do this more quickly and efficiently
I
in
have
Dallas,
recorded
New
it,
York.
so we will be
Yeah.
posting it somewhere.
Yeah.
So it just needs.
But I delineated 4 so-called types of people interpreting data. Zealots, who are essentially hardline interpreters of the current body of the research. Essentially, they're the folks who say, doesn't perfectly match the Harman target, ergo sucks, even though the body of the Harman research has a lot of stuff that doesn't match the Harman target, performing very well in subjective listening tests. Then the so-called heretics, which is us, the people who are like, I like all of this research, but I want to add something to it, and then often don't have nearly the due diligence that we should in
I don't know.
caveating our
Yeah,
conjectures.
No,
I
he's
think
right.
the
He's
other
spitting.
element of it though is that there's a lot of people who say, I like this for the kind of like wideband understanding of tonality, but it doesn't give me an indication of technicalities, and that's what I care about the most because
Yeah, and
this is
those guys
detail
I
and blah blah
described
blah.
as
Right?
the mystics,
Yeah.
the people who
Well,
don't
no, but
reject.
but hold on. Then there's the other group, which I think even further is like, I just reject all of the data.
Those are the obscurantists.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
so it's essentially forming. You could think of it as a 2-axis chart, or you could think of it as just 4 points along a line of how dogmatic your reading of the science is right now. With on one hand, absolute rejection of the science, on the other hand, the absolute rejection of the idea that there is anything which is not fully explained by the current body of research, and in between, almost everything else.
Yeah. So I would say as well that it's an overwhelmingly pervasive issue that I think and again, we're a little bit like we're in that niche where where the largest group for the shallow end of the pool is the tonal technical dichotomy people, I think.
Yeah, I mean those, and I, God, I really wish I'd had more. Like, I can't believe I'm saying so. I wish I'd had more time, because I had a fairly long epistemological argument about why
Yeah.
being in the measurements explain some things, but they can't explain the technicalities, sort of thing, which is a common sentiment you
It
hear of,
really
oh,
is.
measurements explain some things, not everything, is just completely incoherent. Like, it's saying,
It
I
stops making
accept this method of understanding for some things, but not for others.
well, it's more that people think, hey, there's this. I mean, I do blame clinical for that. I mean, like there was a time when I was there, right? Because it's like, uh, if you understand, if you look at the graph on the line, or the line on the graph, right, I can see people coming to that conclusion. It's not, I don't blame them for it, because it doesn't describe their experience in its entirety. It doesn't exhaustively do that. But
Well, the way
if
that they interpret it
the way
doesn't.
they
At least.
interpret it, yeah,
That is a
but
big problem.
I can't blame people for thinking of it this way, um, because it's again, I don't want to get. I'm trying to think of a way to say this without invoking Frank Jackson. but yeah, I don't blame people for this. I do blame Clinical for perpetuating it though, because and I should say it's probably not just him, right? There's a long history of this that is
Yeah, that's the thing. What Critical was doing with that piece entitled "The Tonal Technical Dichotomy" was really just kind of crystallizing a lot of the
yeah,
discourse that was
yeah,
already
and
existing and
there is
kind
a
of
popular
codifying it into a coherent, readable piece.
yeah, and
I mean,
I
my
thought it was a
position.
no, I was gonna say there was a time when I thought this was a very good and useful piece, because it helped people who my feeling at the time, and uh, there's, from my own sort of like learning on the subject, there's been a trajectory where I was in that total technical dichotomy camp at one point, and it's kind of like what happens with, and we're going to get philosophical here, but it's kind of like what happens when you have kind of like the matter form dualism, right? Where
Of course,
eventually,
that familiar reference point.
yes, exactly. Well, where you had basically like, well, eventually matter wins, and for the same, yeah, and it's the same thing.
The best part about this is actually a very controversial take. I mean, not very. This is a take which some people would argue against.
It's not controversial. I mean,
Okay, listen,
we don't do
being
metaphysics today. We do physics. And basically everything that was metaphysics is now epistemology, and that's good. Um, because
I'm just
metaphysics,
saying that obviously I'm a monist. Obviously you are
yes,
too, but
of
like
course.
that's not something that we can just necessarily say, well, of course.
I mean, I know very few philosophers who are still dualists. Like
Well, yeah, but
they're
the thing is, there's a lot of philosophers who are fucking wrong. The majority of moral philosophers are literally people who believe in moral facts. Like, what kind of fucking moron thinks that that's the thing?
I'm not sure I know that many
The,
who.
no, like, there's been a poll. The majority of them do believe that ethical
Interesting.
statements are prepositions.
Actually, that's true, because I do know some people who are realists about this.
Yeah, no, it's
That is
fucking
so
weird.
Yeah,
annoying.
it is
Jesus
true.
Christ.
Yeah, yeah. What about someone says, what about the phenomenal aspect? We will not go into that in this stream, but
Oh, that's where you draw the line. Got it.
Yeah, no, phenomenology. completely off the table. We can't go there.
No,
We'd be there for hours.
we should go there. We should go into modern philosophy of mind about this stuff because I think it does relate to audio in a way that kind of solves some of this because it is actually there's a wonderful parallel there, you know. Um like in modern philosophy of mind, people the dominant view is I've talked about this before, but it's the representational view of mind, which is that basically like mental content is representational content, and that there is it literally is uh, a physical thing that is occurring, and it's just this is the representational content of it.
Bro, we have a cognitivist in chat. Point and laugh at him.
Don't be mean. But anyways, there is I mean I know Griffin is dying inside, but like
So is our audience.
this is the way
Yes.
though that we should be thinking about audio as well, where it's like there is representational content that occurs between the ears when we are hearing the stimulus that is coupled to the side of our heads, but we shouldn't be thinking of it as like as having a subjective or as having a unique metaphysical layer between, right? It literally is this. And so anyways, we can get back to the
Can we talk about Heidegger for a while?
No.
No. Let's get back to CanJam stuff. Okay, so we talked about the things that we heard, right?
Yeah.
What about the other stuff? What did you guys have fun with outside of the nerdy hearing stuff things? Or are there any other things that you heard that you want to talk about? We didn't talk about the Amanus, for example.
Oh,
Oh, well, that was just a piece of shit.
I have so we have a wonderful clip of Blaine listening to the Amanus for the first time and describing it.
I was very tired, so I had less filter than normal.
I don't know if we can make that public. I want to.
I mean,
because I want to, not because it could have been about any headphone. It was just a good delivery. I thought it was like succinct, descriptive. I got the sense from you about how it was like very flag planty. One thing I wanted to talk to you about though is that your talk, you said a wonderful thing in your talk about like if you're having a conversation with somebody about your experience and you're trying to describe your experience, this was good. This was great.
Yeah.
You were basically like you're saying something along the lines of like a person might say, the annoying person might say in response, you didn't have this experience, look, I have a chart, right?
Yep.
Now how do you square that, your sort of criticism of that dialogue that takes place, with your description of the Amanus, which was very much, this is bad, this is, this headphone sucks in all these different ways, where there are lots of people who are having, or reporting overwhelmingly, amazing experiences with this headphone.
Well, and I mean, we've had this conversation behind the scenes, but I have repeatedly made the comparison here of, you can say, well, Andrew likes a more profane version of this, but the metaphor that I prefer for public use is, there's a lot of people who are reporting things which they don't feel aligns with the data. And there's a lot of people who say, I'm not getting medical personnel aren't seriously considering the symptoms I report. Like that's an actual endemic problem that people have. But the flip side is the solution there is not to allow everyone with Munchausen's or Munchausen's by proxy to have unlimited access to any medicines they want.
Where do you draw the line? Because there are bound to be some examples where they are reporting things that you probably should check out.
I mean, I think that where you draw the line is, okay, so this one is sort of where we get into a very difficult point, because it's actually, there are hierarchies of how we should validate things, right? Like the first step is, has anyone reported anything? Because if no one said that there's anything, even under cited conditions, yada, yada, there's no reason to go looking for what no one has said there is. Mm-hmm. Then, okay, there's some people saying, how many of them? Is it just one person? Is this something that actually merits the energy to follow up on it? Because there's always going to be one wacko. But once you have a few people, enough people, you're like, okay, well, maybe this is worth looking at. Then you go to, okay, does this impression hold up when variables are controlled for? For example, if they can see the headphone that they're listening to, they know its price, whatever, that sort of thing. Does this effect still hold for new listeners who haven't been primed with the expectations of the group of people who've heard it, yada, yada. And then when those things hold there, then you move into a more deep thing of, okay, we have an effect that's maybe holding for some controls. Now we do a very controlled thing where we say, are people able to differentiate these things? Once they've been able to do that, then we look into what are the causal mechanisms behind this differentiable effect. So it's a sort of a hierarchic thing where more and more evidence and work is required for more and more levels of certainty. Like, this is basically just explaining the concept of
Yes,
confidence.
all of this is reasonable. However, you, Blaine Lacrosse, in in this particular instance, did not get a chance to do the controlled
Well, no,
section or
I just said my own
hierarchy.
actual experience of it.
But right, but so that's basically on this, even though it was negative, was on the same level as the cited reports from other people, and
Absolutely.
somebody might say, well, like they're being price pilled in this or whatever cited, and the price is influencing
Yeah.
them. It could just as well be influencing you because you knew uh the price. You also found, well, you knew it was expensive. I don't know if you knew exactly, but you also knew that it
That it was
had
a ribbon.
the ribbon esoteric driver design. You knew you didn't like the comfort, right? There were all
I
kinds of
knew it
things
felt
that
like
were,
shit.
yeah, there were all kinds of things that were potentially priming you to have a bad
Oh, no, I
experience,
mean,
and
the
that's
thing is,
equivalent.
those are absolutely true. Like,
So
like my listening test there is not a canonical statement on the
yeah,
sound quality
so
that you get from the frequency response
yes.
of the raw Imanis.
However, you said it with the kind of conviction that described it, not your experience. And that's where I'm wondering if we should be more appropriately describing things as our experience with things rather than describing things like this is like this. And I'm not
I
saying we
mean,
should necessarily. I'm just saying that's
well,
kind of where your suggestion leads me to.
I don't agree, because the thing is, ultimately, when we're giving an experiential report, all we can ever be reporting on is our experience. Like, that's
But
one of the reasons that
we
I
don't use that
never.
language. I agree. That's what we're
Well, no, but
doing.
it's implicit. Like, if
Is it?
someone says this is a detailed headphone,
I I would
I do
actually
not.
say, I know you don't, but I would actually say that the default expectation for people when they're engaging with reviews or any sort of like reports on this stuff, and this is a problem, is that this is just how this headphone is.
So I would say
Well, the
if it's
question is whether
good,
we're.
they come at it with that expectation. If it's bad, it must just be that person's
No, no,
experience.
or it's the
Yeah, I mean,
source they're
that's.
using is wrong.
Yeah, that's the copium. But no, I mean,
Yeah.
I think that this is just a problem of comprehension. Like, you cannot. There are only really two ways to know about things, right? We can have, like, actual research. We had things that give us really high levels of confidence in the underpinning fact, and we can have basically anecdote. And any
Totally.
person's statement on a headphone, a speaker, etc., unless they are citing something, is anecdote. And
I
that's not
think
to say that anecdote is useless, but you should always parse all of it as
yes,
anecdote.
and as usual, this comes down to the problem is with the audio file, right? The problem
Yeah, I
is
mean, the
actually
problem is
with
always with the
is
audience
all
in
yeah,
general.
yeah, exactly.
You
The
people.
Yes, Jesus Christ. The other side of this too is that if you're trying to make a statement, like Taryn gets mad at me all the time for when I do reviews, I try to, and you guys have noticed this too, I try to consider how this might be received by somebody else given the data, even if it's something that I don't like, right? Or maybe it's like, okay, for people who like a brighter sound signature, maybe this one will work for you even though it doesn't for me, etc., or more v-shaped, whatever, right? Consider more of the people because I feel it's important to recognize that this is just my experience and isn't necessarily going to be universal. Well,
Well,
given what we know about HPTF variation, whatever, like there's that too. But I'm talking more along the lines of like there is a value in uh, planting the flag and saying this headphone is terrible or this headphone is amazing, even if what we really mean is my experience with it is bad or my experience with it is amazing.
so my thing here is, if you read a movie review and the critic says this film sucks, are you affronted that they don't say, in my opinion, even though that statement can
No, no, no.
only be a
To be
statement of
clear, I
opinion?
agree with you. I
Many
think
would
Yeah,
be.
no, I'm just sort of like that's the thing people
no.
need, and
I'm
this is
just saying. I'm being the
a
devil's advocate
comprehensional
here.
failure.
Yeah, yeah. I'm being the devil's advocate here, given what you said in your talk, which is very much the sober reality, uh, beyond just this headphone sucks. And on also the annoying people being like, "Look, you didn't have that experience. I have a graph, right?" Like,
Well,
you're
in that case, I would be very surprised if the people who liked the Imanis would like that same sound
in
coming
a
from a
control.
cheap headphone.
or one one that didn't have
Like that's
unique
one where
driver
it
stuff.
sounds, yeah, like without the narrative to prime people, because that's the thing. People, and we know this, people can detect differences, but they don't always immediately go with, we don't go with our gut on whether something is good or not. If someone tells us, oh, this is a fantastic rare niche wine, our impression of its eccentricities is much more positive than it would be if it was $2 Chuck.
Actually, the wine one is an interesting example as well, because I'd say there's an interesting parallel there. I don't know how much of the analogy actually holds to uh, raise a Joelism, who regularly likes to break analogies. But there are those who think that, well, in the wine world, in order to actually appreciate the expensive ones, you need to have a sophisticated palate, and then to take that, which is right.
So
But
there is truth to that in the same way there is in trained audio, I think, right? Like
yes,
consistently
but
identifying things
but
is a trainable skill.
I'm
they
surprised you
will.
didn't go a different route with that, Blaine, because to me the refined palate is, in essence, alcohol actually tastes bad, and having a refined palate is learning
Means that
how
you have
to
learned to
hear
cope.
past the bad and to hear like whatever these people were going
Uh,
for outside
I
of the
mean,
basic badness of it.
typical
But I think
unsophisticated
that
water
is
drinker.
actually congruent to high-end audio a lot of the time. Like, I would say that is absolutely the case with something like the Rallimanis.
So I was going to say something else though, which
Mhm.
is that with the what Blaine brings up about, like, you need to, like, the trained listener thing is maybe equivalent to the refined palate. Let's run with that idea. Um, the irony is more that this same kind of thought process is what people are applying to the Amanis, where in that case the trained listener would have a very, I mean, it's obvious, like, I say trained listener, like people who have a general sense of what things should sound like and what sounds like where the various different, like, features are going to be, will know right away that this has, massive colorations throughout its response. um but then you get hit with that same kind of logic of, like, well, your palette just isn't refined to the same degree, right? um so I do think that you're right, Blaine, that there is an element of, like, trained versus untrained, but it's just it's almost like it's being flipped in these particular instances, in large part because they're so expensive.
Yeah, I mean, the big problem there, and we know this about. Oh, by the way, comment in chat that American Fanta is disgusting. Agreed. Try the zero sugar. It's actually way less bad.
I like this. This
Anyway,
is zero sugar Gatorade. It's really
okay,
good.
that's still bad. I've
No,
had
it's
that. That's
amazing.
still bad. Anyway,
It's amazing.
so
we're talking about wine, and, like, Blaine doesn't like, he hates all wine, and Griffin, I don't think you drink
well,
wine.
I hate all alcohol, to be strict.
Yeah.
No, wine is probably the one drink I will choose to get. Although I got a cocktail at dinner Sunday night because I was feeling good. I was
And
hanging out with my friend.
I love wine, but I'm not able to drink it that much because it gives me heartburn.
Yeah.
Mark, the cognitivist in the chat says that zero sugar Gatorade is awful.
Okay.
Terrible.
I'm sorry, but can we
It's
please
mostly
get back
water.
to CanJam? Like, we are so off.
Someone in chat
not even
says Blaine tried sake. I have actually tried a lot of sake. It's not for me.
a lot
like
of
sake.
okay. Anyway.
Yeah, no.
Okay, let's
this is
talk
related because we're talking
about the MRI thing.
Okay,
Because
but we were in
I
such
think
an
that
interesting bit of dialogue.
yeah, especially to do with Blaine's talk, because I loved that framing of, like, the
which one?
the annoying person that nobody likes being like, you didn't have that experience, I have a graph, versus the
Oh
people who
yeah.
are just genuinely reporting, their experiences.
Well, no one likes
and
that
those
person.
The reality, though,
well,
is
and the
that they're,
people who are reporting fucking insane experiences.
well,
So he's
but
basically saying, what about the other extreme?
and that's what I was gonna, I didn't raise this at the talk, but that was an alarm bell that went off in my head, where it was like, well, what about all those people who are reporting their experiences, they think genuinely, but it is being primed by all these other different effects, where the person holding up the graph is like, you didn't actually have that experience. It's like, well, they're not speaking correctly either, because those people did technically have that experience and they're reporting it. It's just that what
Well,
they're
that's just
not
a case of two
identifying.
stupid people.
It is, and I think that's actually, I think that's largely what this, in practice, what that debate actually looks like.
Yeah, it is.
Right?
It's just two stupid people. It's someone who it's two people who don't understand epistemology or
Yeah.
science arguing
Yeah.
with each other.
Yeah,
But I mean, there's
go ahead.
well, and I mean, to be clear, you cannot disqualify someone's experience. What you can disqualify is their ability to perceive objective reality, right? And that's what people generally are trying to do when they hold up the graph. But then they always, or almost always, misrepresent themselves as saying, oh, no, you didn't actually perceive that, which of course is objectively incorrect. You
Well,
cannot know what someone else perceived.
the
Conversely,
other
the people who are on the other side invariably assume that their perception directly reflects like absolute objective reality, because they are basically falling into a naive epistemological failure of the sort that Ayn Rand suffered from.
yeah.
Well, I mean, that
Shout
is
out
literally
Ayn Rand,
why
friend of the program.
objectivism
No,
is
I'm just
called
kidding.
that.
The your favorite word. The I was gonna say, I think the more common thing that I come across is people saying, not saying you didn't have that experience, rather saying, um, that experience that you're reporting isn't strictly of the sound quality, right? Like that
Yeah.
if you, which is a more reasonable thing to say, is I mean, you're still an asshole for saying it, but I think it's a much more appropriate thing because it's like you're saying, well, you know, your experience is being primed by all these different effects, and anybody who is honestly sort of self-evaluating will have to be like, well, yeah, I mean, like we all kind of are being primed by whatever, you know.
Our cognitivist friend in chat also notes that you can misreport things even if your perception is correct, which is true.
That's true. Yeah.
They're communicative problems inherently.
Okay, we can move away from the philosophy. I'm enjoying this, but we could talk about
They
the
really
MRI stuff.
Steindal my Wittgens.
Yeah. So for folks who want to see the talk, that will be up at some point. We may do a separate video on this, but the gist of it, the outcome there is that it's stuff that we've been kind of working on behind the scenes, and we're all sort of aware of. But it is a public facing version of where data visualization can go. That is a more complete, wider perspective, increased perspectives of headphone performance, and that the single line against a target is a lie. Basically, that's the
Yeah, and that interpreting based on that pretty much invariably takes us to stupid town. Like, it's
Yeah.
very hard to just look at a line on a chart, treat that as an absolute objective fact of human experience, and then not end up at some very bad like expectations people would have of how that would sound. But when you actually look at the underpinning data, the range of human experience becomes more reconcilable.
And so for folks who are looking at our graphs and be like, but you show a single line. That's not because
We're
we want
working
to.
on it.
It's because
We're
that's
working on it. We want to obscure that away.
Yeah.
Yeah, no more lines.
No more single lines. It's
Areas only.
Yeah. That's actually a resources problem, not a not an
I
ideological.
mean, realistically, like, and this is something I've been thinking about. We may want to, until we can get the wisely finished, we may want to just have like an Excel template that we can put stuff into that gives us the right kind of visualizations, because that's something I
was
can
actually
do by
talking
next week.
I was talking to Constantine about this. He actually thinks that it's like what we're the benefit of wisely is actually still in showing the range, like the preference bounds.
I agree.
And I mean, like we could do this another way too. It's just that that's where we have the database, so you can compare fairly easily. But it's already better than many of the older.
Oh yeah, no, it's the best thing that exists right now. It's just that it's still not enough.
Yeah,
I mean, it's sort of like saying that this water is only 1% sewage. You still wouldn't want to drink it,
exactly.
even if the alternative is 20.
Yep. All right, let's move on. Let's move back to the MRI.
Okay. So for those who aren't aware,
Craig
time. So Craig is a
here?
viewer on the channel. I think he's still here. I mean, I assume he wouldn't be turned away by the absolute deluge of nerd bull stuff. But
you can say bullshit.
And I think his son Miles are in chat, both of whom were a really good time. So both are viewers of the channel, and Craig reached out to me to help us set up time with him at the MRI lab at UC Irvine. And we got our heads fully scanned. Now, when I say fully scanned, I mean they did multiple scans. So one of the things that Craig was particularly interested in, and this is why we were interested, was because he was very focused on getting a full scan of the ear all the way from the outer ear down to the eardrum and past the eardrum. So basically, the area of interest for us, but also getting us a full head scan. And the process
And
there
also
was
allowing us to see which one of us looked the most like Baron Harkonnen.
yeah. So
It's me, by
one
the
of the
way.
funny things was
no. I think you, me, and Cameron are all vying for that
My
distinction.
Dune, my Arrakis.
I think
Like,
as far as
Cameron
like
very
looking
much looked like
close
it
to
originally.
who is it, Alexander Skarsgård in that movie, I think it's probably Andrew. And I will say, so the weird thing is you see all of us without hair, but you see all of us without facial hair too.
Well, and
So like,
also the like when you're sitting there, you're kind of like,
yeah,
Yeah,
you're a
it's
little
not
bit like that.
not
Yeah,
a
yeah,
flattering
yeah.
perspective.
yeah.
So yeah, there's a little bit of that. But
I didn't
looks a lot
recognize
fatter than
Andrew at
like
all.
I've never seen
without the
Blaine or
beard.
Andrew without facial hair. And like Blaine, it was okay. Like I feel like it was immediate. And I think it was the Schnoz gang that
Yeah.
immediately was like, oh yeah, that's Blaine. I legitimately did not know who Andrew
Yeah,
was when I looked
same.
at it. I
I
was
could
like,
recognize Constantine right away. I didn't recognize
yeah.
Griffin, even though he was the skinniest of all of us. Like,
Oh, I
Constantine was the
recognized
killer
Griffin
Schnoz house.
immediately.
oh, I did not. Yeah,
Yeah, it's by the schnoz. You just
Yeah.
don't you don't have schnoz vision.
I recognized Blaine immediately though.
Oh.
That was pretty easy.
I've got a
but
very
yeah,
distinctive brow
You do,
and
yeah.
schnoz.
And
but like
Schnoz.
it was like
Yeah. So there, like I think Craig sent me a lineup of just like all five of us
Yeah.
in a line, and it
Yeah.
was like the most disturbing image I've gotten on Discord
no,
in a while.
the
and that's
most
saying
disturbing
something.
thing that I saw was Griffin with the front half of his face cut off.
Oh,
Oh,
I
yeah.
love that view.
It had the eye sockets and it had a portion
Yeah.
of the skull, front bit of the
Dude,
skull.
I'm gonna make so many uncanny pictures of myself with this.
Nightmare fuel. Nightmare
Dude,
fuel.
Yeah, I'm excited to finally start diving in. I've been doing well, other things which I think you both are aware of, but I'm not sure we're going to talk about yet. But yeah, that was really fun. It was really fun talking to Craig, someone who's just both been in audio for longer than I've been alive, and like very clearly into the same level or nerdier of nerd interest in this. He was doing some wild stuff with principal component analysis, like pulling apart all of the features of a headphone frequency response based on their dissimilarity. There was a lot there, and it was wild speaking to someone who's like in some ways nerdier than Blaine, because I thought I had like reached the cap on that, and that was just like where I was going to be coasting for the rest of my life. But Craig was so interesting. Like, obviously, he's been around and doing it a long time, but he was also asking a lot of questions that I feel
I
like
like that I'm
none of us
the
had
high
really
water
thought to
mark for
ask
nerdy
yet.
for you.
What's up?
I like that I was your 10 out of 10 nerdy reference.
You were. You absolutely were. Don't act like that's unreasonable.
Depends how you define nerdy. Because if you define it, because you could say Constantine and Blaine are both similarly, luminarious in audio, but
I
Blaine
would
is clearly the
agree.
nerdier one because Constantine is like,
Yeah, Constantine's a different kind of nerd,
you
though.
spend any time talking to Constantine, he doesn't come across as a nerd, even though
Oh,
he's
he
extremely
totally does. You just missed
compared
the
to
sign.
you.
Yes. Listen, within minutes of talking to Constantine, I knew he was the kind of person who listened to Gent, which is the nerdiest of all music.
I don't know,
It
man.
is
Jazz
up
gets pretty
there.
nerdy.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you guys. So, and we spoke about this a little bit at the MRI lab, but like, what do you guys hope to get out of this?
I'm gonna 3D print a copy of my brain.
3D.
You keep saying brain.
So, but there are research purposes for that Craig was interested in as well, and
Yes.
and so I'm just wondering, like what's
That's what I meant
for
by
people
him
who maybe are
asking questions we hadn't really thought to ask. But
yeah, but for people who are like, why are you doing this? I would turn that question to you guys. Like, what's the outcome and end goal here?
I mean, ideally, I'd like to make versions of both our pinna that will fit onto a 711 and also our pinna plus canal that will mate with a 4620.
So
Yes.
interestingly, I'm bringing this up because that is the mold of my ear canal.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, what does people have this. If you've ever done like a
Yeah, custom IAMs or anything like that.
yeah, it's yellow because that's the color of
putty.
the actual stuff.
That's
It's
also the
not
color of his ear canals. It's just like a
good.
beacon in there.
Jesus Christ. So the question that I would have is, what does the MRI give us that does not?
Well, it gets really awkward when you ask the audiologist to do a mold that goes to your eardrum. They don't like it. They don't want to do it, to be honest, and most of them won't.
This is really close because it doesn't have the
You
eardrum.
say that, but
it doesn't have
like
the
they
eardrum,
always
but
put like cotton or
there's a
something
cotton,
like
yeah, exactly.
between the end and
the otoacoustic block.
Yes.
Yeah. And part of what Craig's is doing is so interesting is because like you can't, I mean, I don't know if you can't, but it's very hard to image the eardrum itself from an MRI because it's very thin.
Mhm.
But part of what was so valuable about Craig's analysis was that he landmarked certain parts of the middle ear and inner ear such that we're going to have a decently good idea of where the canal actually terminates and the eardrum actually sits, which like
there's also
with
actually
what you have there is not a given at all.
One additional value is that he is giving us a complete model that goes from the outer ear to the inner ear.
Yes.
Mating of the canal to the bottom of the concha actually is quite influential in response.
Mhm.
I have tried to do individualized ears before, and it's a bit of a pain in the ass, to be perfectly frank, because obviously you can't do, well, with shitty photogrammetric scanning, I couldn't do proper stuff down into even the first bend, really. I'm sure that you can these days because it's gotten a lot better.
Yeah.
But even then, it's very useful to be able to have the whole thing as one geometric object that we can work with.
Two geometric
also
objects
means that we
have
can
them for both ears.
Yeah, and we can
whole
also build little binaural microphones that are our heads.
Yeah.
So
those will almost certainly sound very convincing if my past experiments like that are correct, which will
I
be
have no
very
idea why they
interesting.
wouldn't be. Yeah, I mean it's the same geometric thing.
Yeah.
We will have our own ear prosthetics to couple to the different hats.
Hopefully so. That is the goal.
Yeah.
And then
that
so for folks unaware, that gives us an indication of how things are performing on our heads.
Yeah,
which is going to be different from
so like one of the things we couldn't do now is, well, we probably could, but it would be a pain in the ass and probably very uncomfortable and potentially dangerous, is get eardrums measured at our HRTFs. Like that's very hard. We wouldn't.
Eardrums measured.
Blaine would probably be up for it.
You understood what he meant. You understood what he meant.
He said a thing that when my brain went, no, that's not the right order for things.
Listen, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But if we were to like say build a whole accurate head, outer ear, inner ear, eardrum, we would be able to get at least something rather similar to it. Obviously, the eardrum will be different, but that is so much closer than we are currently.
So much. That's the thing. Closer is the thing, because there are still other factors like the coupling to the largesse of the head and the fact.
I would actually really love to also compare like Blaine hats to Blaine head measurements.
Yeah, because that is actually one of the most pressing things for me to do, is to compare a blocked canal measurement of in my own ear, like DF compensating a headphone to the rig eardrum measuring and DF compensating to a headphone, and to see one, like if just rig outer ears are just like doing something else that we are not accounting for.
Also, placement is going to differ, and I would really love to quantify that effect.
Craig says for the audience, the tympanic membrane is all of 80 microns thick. So small.
For those who prefer to dimension things in imperial units, that is slightly over 3 thou.
But the semicircular canals are a nice and easy landmark. You can get from there to the ossicles.
Yeah, those are the bones.
Oh, right. Okay. To where the membrane must be. Okay. Yeah, that groks with what he was explaining there as well. I suppose this to me, I don't know if we want to talk about the Fabian Brinkman stuff now,
We
but
can.
there's an element of so we have. I don't know if, okay, let's talk about it because I think it's also interesting and kind of related because being able to get a like hats like measurement with the full canal and the full system ear system basically for our own individual ears and seeing how things differ and how specifically the headphone behavior changes, I feel is a better indication of that than using blocked canal data a la the Fabian Brinkman method, which that it's not the Fabian Brinkman method, but Fabian Brinkman's thing. What is this called? A cross
Well,
evaluation database of measured simulated
well, he
HRTFs, including
uses
3D.
a mic design that I guess he
Well,
partially
I'm
came
also
up with.
just thinking of like, like one of the things that we've been talking about is maybe walking back some of the language on, well, you and I have been talking about, Griffin, is maybe walking back some of the language on like acoustic impedance, low acoustic impedance being less variable given some of the results there. However, the reason,
Well, there's a question of ceteris paribus here. Like, what is held equal?
well, so here's my issue with it. It's that in those examples that show significant variation for headphone behavior on different heads, they use
Yeah.
different headphones, right? Now so there's the DT990, there's the HD800, and they show similar levels of variation. But to me, there's an issue there, which is the potential confounding variable of the blocked canal mic. And
Oh no, I don't think so.
No, I mean the
so
mic is in the exact same condition
no,
measuring the
hold on.
HRTF as measuring
It
the headphone.
is, right. It is. So that's one thing. But the fact that it's, to me, there's a bit of like this isn't yet the proof that I want, because it actually is. That's supportive of the thing that we're trying to put forward here, particularly with what Blaine has also been saying about, like, in his talk about, headphone behavior varying substantially across individual, and that's very much supportive of that. But to me, it's not as indicative of what that actual performance might be as something like what the MRI thing could potentially give us. That's
I
the tie-in for me.
I don't think that that's correct. Like the headphones we're talking about are not ones that I would expect to have substantial, pardon me, substantial
Canal.
reactive impedance at high
Yeah, yeah.
frequency. Like we're not really talking about like a small closed front volume, sure, maybe then the canal load has an effect. But it would really surprise me if that was impactful here. Like if we look at Hammershaw and Muller's research on this, there is not a lot of cases where large open headphones had very high so-called pressure division ratios, which is inherently the relationship of the blocked and unblocked canal response.
Yeah, I'm more thinking. So the reason why I'm not skeptical in terms of the conclusion here. I'm skeptical in terms of this being the indication. I said to Griffin, this being the indication of fire as opposed to the indication of smoke. That's kind of where I'm at with it, because
What is an indication of smoke?
so you know how they say if there's smoke, there's fire. To me,
Yeah.
there isn't fire here. There is smoke, and so it's like this is probably the case. I just don't think it's quite the same as what I'm
Sorry,
looking for.
what is the case here?
The blocked canal data. So what's going on here
No, but like
for
what?
folks?
Sorry, what is like what is the thing that the blocked canal data would be proving? Like what is the fire? What would the fire
Oh,
be?
the fire is
The
uh
fire rises.
it basically is Joel narrative that generic HRTF makes more sense because of how
Oh, okay.
significant headphone. I mean, there's also like a conceptual ideological question there, I think, as well, that's worth asking. But like it's more that like um HPTF variation is so strong even in low acoustic Z conditions. To me, is like, if that's true, that is enough that we should strongly consider moving to generic HRTF for over ears as well.
Wait, what? That doesn't follow.
If that is literally Joel narrative, is what I'm saying. So if the
Do I
HPT,
have to fight Joel again? I've kind of like he may have gone
Well,
off the reservation while I haven't been paying much attention to him, but if he's
no,
saying
okay.
that,
no,
then we
no,
need
this,
to
So
fight
this is
again.
totally
to
reasonable.
be clear, what Joel narrative is are rigs a good proxy for human measurements, right?
Yes.
And Joel's argument, which isn't really Joel's argument, it was Hammershøi and Muller's argument first, is that
Well, I mean, yeah,
a
that's like
generic
saying that.
HRTF is a generic HRTF minimizes the error in a certain band versus rig-specific HRTF
Yeah.
that Hammershøi and Muller measured.
Yeah, and but the reason for this is because of because HPTF variation is so significant that it kind of like it kind of makes it more error to read the specific pinna effects for the behavior of a headphone.
For an over-ear headphone, I don't agree.
So that's
the thing
where
is that the region of interest
contention
we're
is.
talking about is not actually like the upper treble. Like it's
Well,
actually
we're talking
like in
about like 3K plus.
yeah,
Right?
2 kilohertz
Yeah.
is
Even,
what we're talking about.
So it's
I
right.
mean, the thing
so
here is that we need to be quantifying variation both as a function of like relative to HRTF. Like this is a separate
Yes.
parameter we
Yeah,
should be
and
considering.
This
as
is
a separate measure.
non-HRTF related HPTF
exactly. So
variation.
it's a separate. This is it's a really interesting way of thinking about it too, and especially the way that you showed me that graph, Griffin, where it's basically like it's the headphones behavior relative to the HRTF, right? Like it's the delta.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that to me is a interesting phenomenon if that's true, right? If that's, and this is where my one scrungle comes into play, but if that's true, that's a fascinating outcome that actually, in my view, supports Blaine's conclusion in the talk that he gave.
Well, it should, because one of the sections of my talk was about that effect.
Yeah, exactly. However, the scrungle that I have is, and we could talk about this a little bit, and you did bring it up, is
Right.
the microphone placement sensitivity is in the band where you see the most variation. And yes, it is. So based on what's said there in this, from what the quote is that you pulled, Griffin, the HRTF was, sorry, the placement was done after the HRTF was calculated, but the mic wasn't reseated, right?
No.
So that could, yeah, just straight on.
Headphone
Right? So,
on as soon as head related transfer function.
So that it to me is like already like, okay, that's more than I thought they would do, because if you look at some of the, like this was,
if you look at Fabian's past papers, he cares a lot about the variation of placement. Like he was the guy who produced the original graph showing the variation of different types of insert microphones, like over different seatings. So
yeah, so there is, so that's good, and like to me that's already a bit better than some of the stuff that Sean was doing with the mannequin heads and the humans.
Well, the big problem that Sean had is that he was using those terrible
the
concha
other
mics.
Yeah. But anyways, so to get back to the Fabian Brinkman stuff, I still have somewhat of an issue. I still have a question mark there, where even if the seating is, even if there's no reseat for the microphones between the HRTF capture and
yes, it
the
can
headphone,
shift.
it can, yeah. So, well, it can shift, but also like even if that's constant, you don't necessarily have a guarantee that it is going to be exactly in the same spot for every individual.
Well, it doesn't need to be in the same spot.
Well,
for
it's
every
getting
individual.
compensated away regardless
Because of the HRTF calculation, right?
Yeah,
Right,
the only case where you
capture.
need it to be the same is if you were comparing the raw data, but you're comparing the difference.
Yeah. Now, I am still unsure I'm still unsure about that, just because of how I'm unsure of that as it relates to HPTF variation specifically, because of where the variation is in that data, being exactly in the band where you see that sensitivity to positional differences with the microphone placement. So even if they didn't,
the band where you see sensitivity positional differences is basically from 2 kilohertz up, and it just gets worse.
Well, but
it
gets worse as it and so to me it's like the fact that there's that, I mean, learning about how it was done makes it less of a confounding variable. I still feel it probably should be verified.
I mean, yes, ideally everything. Like quantification of error is one of the things that I'm really glad Sean has so much of in his recent presentation, and I would like to see more of in all this, because people end up just fucking jerking off to shrimp here, and it's just useless. Like they're the tiniest little details. People are just like at the microscope fucking absolutely furious. It's absurd to me, the level of And I mean, we are guilty of this
Of course.
a lot. And it's something that I'm trying to push away
Love
from,
shrimp.
of being like, no comment. But I'm trying to push away from this thing of being like, oh, there's a 1 dB difference here. Should we care about it? And
As far as like the microphone sensitivity thing though, I like the tiniest little positional difference can lead to quite massive
I
differences in the
mean,
response.
you're basing that on your own blocked canal headphone measurements or
Well, no,
on
no,
the
well, on
5128
yeah,
transfer
yeah,
function
like
stuff we were
if you,
doing?
yeah, that part. When I remember when I was doing that, I was like, wow, there is no way to get this so that it's consistent. Like, no, I can't
I
get
should
the
note
same.
the mics that I gave you. I'm going to give you an updated mic that's more stiff elastomer, and that
That might
should
help.
reduce the variation.
Okay, I'm down to try
Yeah,
that.
and also the variation on those placements, like once we got it like to
If you did
generally
enough
around
of
the
them,
right
you could
area,
get a
it
trend.
wasn't that big until like 10 kilohertz.
Above which you're
No,
in hell.
we did have some results though, with
Above 10K it was
I'll be right
crazy,
back.
but below that it was not. It
we
was
did have some. No, we had some. If I and I have the data still, but if I remember correctly, and I just need to do this one again. I feel I tried to basically I took
yes.
pictures of it every time. I tried to align it in the same spot every time, and I would get upwards of like 6 dB difference throughout that entire range from 2 kilohertz up, like plus or minus. And um,
Mm,
I remember
I'm looking at it
there was
right now.
another.
It's more like 1 decibel between
Well,
like
because I deleted a lot.
4 kilohertz and yeah, like 8
What I ended
kilohertz.
up
It's
sending
probably like
you
a
was
dB
not the
spread.
full. No, what I ended up sending you was not the full range because I realized that there was an error in like I don't remember if this was to do with the. This is getting really nerdy, but like I don't remember this was to do with the hook going around the ear going straight down, or if it was to do with so the mics themselves are contoured, and you can't. So technically, there's only one correct way to place them in,
Yeah.
and I feel like the uh the original ones that we were doing were not. I don't know if they were incorrect, but I felt
Mm.
that they were so substantial that they could have been. So I used a different mic for the second ones. But at that point, I'd already gotten a lot better at like, getting the placement, exact. So I'm just to me, it's like there's enough there where I'm like, I don't know if I can be 100% confident in this, you know, uh method, let's just say. So I'm game to do it again and see what the results are. I just don't want to. I don't want to be like ratings and concluding something there off of something where I'm like, there is still a scrungle, you know.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's reasonable.
so to get back to the MRI thing, this to me, if it works out as we hope, even amongst the group of us that did it, would be the validation for that. Because then, if it turns out to be the same as far as HBTF variation is concerned, that's really the ultimate conclusion, in my view.
It's certainly one that I think we're all interested in, and yeah, it's one of the main reasons we all were so enthusiastic about accepting Craig's offer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shall we move
What
on?
else?
I mean, we
Well,
have.
yeah. Did you do anything else extracurricular outside of listening to headphones during the weekend that was fun for you?
I hung out with Scott. Shout outs to Scott, Mark Ryan. Hung out with Adrian. Shout outs to Adrian. Tacos. Yeah. I had some delicious whiskey. By the way, that whiskey's called Angel something. You messaged me, but my local liquor store has it. So I'm Angel's Envy. My local liquor store, yeah, they have it, and it's expensive, but it's not too expensive. So I will definitely get some.
Are you guys talking about booze now?
Yes.
We were talking about Andrew getting drinks after taco night with
Yeah.
Scott and Mark and Adrian.
Yeah. And also taco night in general was fun. We got to hang out with Dimitri there. Got to hang out with I think Miko was there. We got to chat with him for a bit. Where I felt I'd probably had too many drinks at that point, so I apologize, Miko.
Oh no, you don't. No, you don't need to apologize to Miko. Miko goes wild sometimes.
Pardon
I'm
me, it's
sure.
milk hole.
Yeah. Listener with the heiress, yeah, you got to try the heiress.
Oh yeah, that was a good time. That
I
was
like Constantine in the helmet.
Oh yeah.
that was a funny picture. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't show up to taco night until late. There was a dinner that I went to, which was nice.
Yeah, we really should try and expand Taco Night and maybe be one of the sponsors for it, so they can get a larger space, get more people.
Yeah, I mean that space was already pretty big. I wasn't there when it was packed.
I know
though,
it's just
so-
they were running out of food.
Ah,
Yeah, we just need more tacos.
Yeah.
clearly.
So yeah,
Those
so
were really good tacos.
They're amazing tacos, especially so they had the sauces lined up from mild to wild. If you guys went wild, it was spicy.
Did you hear about what Constantine did?
No.
So he saw that there was a line
Oh,
of
yeah.
sauces, and he was like, I'm just gonna have all of them. He didn't realize that they were sorted by
Oh my god.
by heat.
I had all wild, all the spiciest, and it was spicy, and it was good.
Yeah, no, Constantine was very surprised when he took a bite.
Yeah. But I was kind of like, oh, finally something that's actually a bit spicy, you know, like the other ones, like usually when you get like the spicy sauce on tacos, it's not spicy. That one was. So I'm like, thank you.
Hell yeah.
Let's move on. We've been on this for
Okay,
way
I
too
wanted to
long.
give one more. I wanted to give one more shout out to Monday when I had booked a late flight, Blaine had booked a late flight, and Constantine had booked a late flight. Show was over, and we just spent a day together, kind of
Hanging
palling
out.
around. We went to the beach. We had a good time.
Bunch of guys being pals.
Yeah, just guys being dudes. What's better than this?
Well, you say just guys being dude, Mister. Don't climb on the jetty rocks.
Yeah, so Blaine was trying to
Blaine gave
endanger
the bird the
himself,
middle
and I
finger?
had to advise against that. We saw some seals, and every time that the seal made a sound, Constantine went, "Arr, arr, arr." It was
He
very
fucking
funny.
loves seals, dude. It's great.
Yeah, I did
Should've
not
filmed
know
that.
how much Constantine
Should've
loved
filmed
seals
that.
until that moment, but I now like seals.
Seals are great.
Yeah, we walked around. I think it was the Newport Beach area, which was like crazy affluent and very
Huntington Beach.
small. What's up?
Huntington Beach, right?
Huntington Beach. Yeah. Regardless, all the houses there were like very small, but you could tell they were very expensive.
Huntington Beach area is nice. I don't like the beach. I fucking hate it. But the area, like the there's like little.
I mean, do you
know,
like any
restaurants,
beach?
coffee shop. I like rocky beaches.
I mean, Huntington Beach reminds me of the sandier beaches of the Puget Sound.
Yeah, no, fuck that.
Oh, you're just like Anakin Skywalker, I guess, huh?
Coarse and rough and irritating.
It gets everywhere.
Also,
Yeah, I guess I get
for
it.
the
We didn't
record,
go on the beach. We were mostly on like the pier and like side.
River beaches are fun. I
areas.
agree. River beaches do.
no, river beaches are the worst. I have lost many shoes to the weird mud
How?
like stuff that. I don't know if this is just the Skagit River thing, but there would just be like bits where if you step on it, you go like half deep into the mud.
It's hilarious to me that you also have the Skagit River. But yeah, that makes
Do you
sense.
guys wait? You guys?
Yeah, we have a Skagit.
Well, yeah, it's the same Skagit. I mean,
It's
it
the same
comes down.
Skagit. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no. Did
Look
the
at us
whale get up
being
there?
Pacific Northwesterners.
Because the whale got up to like Mount Vernon.
Oh gosh,
I
I have no idea. I have no idea.
Yeah, there was a whale on the Skagit.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Interesting. Any other CanJam thoughts?
I wanted to say I really enjoyed hanging out with you and Constantine. I wish that we
Yeah,
had
that
like
was very good.
we should do that every CanJam, just like chilling out, going to hi-fi stores, harassing people.
Yeah, I'm glad I missed that. No, it's just kidding.
Yeah. So Blaine is
hey,
not being accurate. We did not harass any audio store employees. We walked into an audio store and there was a nice older gentleman sitting with his system, and we chatted for like 5 minutes and left because he didn't have headphones. No harassment.
He did, however, have the most base reason for not having headphones, which is that he just doesn't like headphones.
So based. Such good.
Yeah, no,
taste.
that guy. If you don't want headphones and you want hi-fi, you should go to Pacific Coast Audio.
I think something like that.
Just because having the strength of character to be like, yeah, no, this is the most, like, the fastest growing product category in my entire industry. I don't like it. I'm not carrying it. That's the sort of character that you should be supporting.
Hell yeah. Yeah, funny guy.
Yeah.
Also, I'd like to have it on the record that the only reason that I was flipping off the seagull was because I couldn't get close enough for physical violence because Griffin was complaining.
And just a reminder, this stream is made possible by headphones.com.
It is your number one place to learn about and buy audio equipment. Not only headphones, but also digital analog converters, amplifiers, and indeed speakers.
Yeah.
We are dealers for both Focal and KEF, the latter of which you should really consider because we have some quite good prices on them.
Yeah, I really want to get one. Like, I wish we had some sort of speaker measurement rig because, like, I actually really want to review the KEF LSX LT.
I mean, Aaron has literally volunteered. Speaking of, we need to have Aaron on.
Yeah,
we're still trying to plan this.
Yeah,
like probably like week after next if he can make it.
Yep.
But he has offered to do measurements for us before, and I would love that so much.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yes, we should take full advantage of that.
We do have to move on though.
Yeah, let's do it.
Do you want to do what
next topic was Blaine topic?
Guys, we don't have that much time left, so
okay, we can bump that one to a different time.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you want to do the other topic of the week, or do you want to move to the other stuff?
I want to move to the other stuff, and then Fight Club.
Okay. Well, I might want to skip what we're listening to because I haven't been able to listen to anything. We've been on the trip, and I just watched movies on the flight. I didn't listen to anything.
I will say
I only listened to music on the flight, but it was real bad.
I have been listening to the Imaginal Disc thing. It's decent.
Okay.
And
so Andrew's listening to Imaginal Disc and verifying my take.
Yeah, it's decent.
That's good.
I've also been listening to the more of the NJ Heritage Collection. This Antonio Faro guy is insane. He does a jazz version of the James Bond theme song, and it's remarkable.
Yeah, you
it's
sent
one
that
of those
to me. I only got to listen to like the first minute of it.
Dude,
it was good.
It's like if you don't understand, it's one of those things that's annoying for people who don't understand music. They'll be like, "How is this the James Bond theme?" But if you understand it, it's like, no, it is. It totally you'll get it. You'll hear it and you'll be like, I get it. I get what he's doing there, and it's
gotta look for the motifs, my guy.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. And so anyways, I love that kind of stuff. It's annoying as shit, but I like it. And yeah. So been jamming out with that.
Nice. Yeah, that whole collection seems like it's just like bangers front to back. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jesus Christ. I just looked at what I added to my liked songs during this, and it's just really indefensible.
Oh, speaking of indefensible, for the metalheads out there, Ne Obliviscaris.
Might want to write that in chat, Andrew.
I don't know if I want to. It's not good, but I have been listening to it because it's like traditional sort of like, I wouldn't say it's traditional. It's like kind of like death metal-y, proggy black metal kind of stuff. But here's the twist: they have a violin player, and the way the violin is done is this like crazy like screeching, like haunting, like clearly somebody who can play, but doing it in a way that is like congruent with that sort of black metal kind of motif.
So it's just folk death then.
But not folky at all. I would not say it's folky in any way. It's just that it uses some of those timbral elements from those instruments. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
People who are into metal will know that
suggestion.
Okay.
Marcel says there's this small rock band. Don't know if you've heard about them. They're called Alternating Current Direct Current.
I don't know them. No, that's correct.
Yeah, minor indie band.
Wait, Andrew, you're joking, right?
I haven't heard of them.
No, don't fall for this. Don't give into this.
Why would I have heard of them?
Don't indulge him. Anyway, we're moving on.
Coldplay. I've heard of Coldplay. Somebody says Coldplay. I've seen that before.
Okay, we're moving on. For what it's worth, if we are what I've been listening to, the only one that I feel like not embarrassed about is that I've been listening to Nine Treasures again, and Nine Treasures are so fucking based. Mongolian metal.
Oh, have you heard
Awakening
the
from
Who?
Dukkha is fucking great.
Have you
Oh,
heard
of
the
course I've
Who?
heard the Who.
The Who's great, and that's
The
the
Who's great.
HU. Yeah.
Yeah, the
Wayne
Who and
recommended
Ten.
me the Who
Is
Yeah,
it
quite
with
a
two
the
while
Who's
back.
great. Tenger Cavalry also really good. Nine Treasures though also excellent.
Yeah. Oh yes. No. What's the middle one that you said?
Tenger Cavalry.
I've heard of that one as well.
Yeah, they're excellent.
Yeah, I haven't been listening to much music. I just did CanJam, and then I came back and I started. I just got right back into MATLAB, and
Do
haven't
you not
been
listen to
listening
music when you do that stuff?
No, I find it distracting.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Because
Well, that's why I
I'm
listen
with
to
you.
so much stuff with non-English lyrics.
That makes sense. Yeah.
For me, I listen to the esoteric jazz when I'm playing video games because it is sort of like that counterbalanced, like it's
the contrast is compelling.
it's the ballast for my mental zone.
Got it.
The ballast. What does that mean?
It doesn't matter. It's not important.
Oh wait, actually, hold on. It does Andrew even care? Griffin, this is this playlist that Spotify made me on the day I got up at 3 a.m. to take the plane to California. Edgy, grim, early morning.
So I just
That's
saw
how
this
all
recently as a
that's all
thing.
my mornings.
David was showing me this. I don't use Spotify, so are they like using AI to like kind of figure out the vibe and then calling it that vibe?
No, it's not. I don't think at least that it's AI because this predates widespread use of
It's
generative
just taking
AI. I'm pretty sure.
like genre tags people ascribe to something and then
Yeah,
kind
it's
of
like a tagging based thing. I'm sure that they've added AI to it, but
okay.
it's just insulting to me that it's always. I mean, calling my music edgy is just who's an edgy boy. Fucking annoying.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's
Enciferum is
congruent.
edgy.
It's correct.
So is Ailstorm.
Ailstorm is not. What the fuck do you mean Ailstorm is edgy? Ailstorm is a fucking comedy show.
Yeah, but okay. How about this? Your recommendations are recommendations are edgy.
Ailstorm
Ailstorm
literally has a song called Party.
Yeah.
They're not edgy.
Yeah, but you recommending it to people as like a serious, but you do listen to it seriously. That's the funny part.
Yeah, I mean, I like Ailstorm.
Blaine listens
wouldn't
to
say
many
that.
funny things seriously.
Yeah, that's the edgy bit.
I mean,
Oh, they would call it edgy.
how we define
Okay, maybe
serious,
subversive. I don't know. Yeah, maybe edgy is not the right word for that, but still, it is off kilter.
Someone said I'm famous for liking anime music, then followed it with real. I don't think that's real.
Yeah, no, I can see that.
We say we have way too many anime PFPs in chat.
This is true.
I listened to an anime music recently, but I don't remember what it was called.
I like the
see if I
Ghibli
saved
stuff.
it.
Joe Hisaishi's what's the word? The goat. He's great. Great composer. I don't really know much
We've
like in terms
confirmed.
of anime like soundtracks outside of that though.
And I can't fucking find it. Well, I did listen to an anime though. It was okay.
I'm glad you're okay.
Yeah. We should put listener weeb on our bingo. We do have Blaine as a furry, so that's good.
Wait, what?
You were gone.
Why would that be on our bingo?
That was Griffin's suggestion.
What?
Look, it just comes up all the time. So
Forced
we should.
meme.jpg.
All right, let's move
Forced
on.
memes are good.
Should we do the subjectivist challenge?
Yeah, let's do it. Okay. Who wants to go first?
Chat is being so fucking weird. Anyway.
So for folks who are unaware of what the subjectivist challenge is, this is where we have to describe a headphone in purely subjective terms. We're not allowed to make reference to frequency response or anything that would be sort of objective.
Oh, actually, someone on the forum said something really funny about this game, and I want to see if I can pull it up. Hold on.
Okay. And basically the rest of us have to guess what that headphone is. So this is where we lean heavily into the words.
Someone in chat said that bolt thrower is old school, and now I feel extremely old.
Okay, I found it. User ABM0 said, in the subjectivist challenge, I don't always understand why you're scoffing or smirking in concert at the use of some terms that seem to me like they just help translate from technical descriptions to what a listener could expect to hear in purely musical terms from a headphone with technical property XYZ.
Because
Maybe
we're
you can make
assholes.
No,
Well-
you specifically take on a character, and it's my favorite part about it, because it's like
I think we all do that though. Like, I think we all are like,
but
the
we
reason I want to bring this
generally
up is because I
describe
do want to
things
address
subjectively,
that,
too.
like, because we are nerds at a specific
But
level
hold on. No,
brainworm.
you and I use these terms like dynamics and whatever else, right? In part because we know that that's the language that many people who are watching our content or reading it expect.
Yeah, but like
Blaine takes on a
what the
character
person on the
of somebody
forum
who
is saying is that
genuinely
we're
thinks
like
this stuff is
smirking
real.
and like tongue in cheek doing it, which like we are. We made it into a game
Yeah.
because that's not how we naturally think
No,
about
we
this
would not
stuff or
talk to each
Like,
other
we
like
have to
this.
twist ourselves into
Yeah.
knots to not talk about the things like frequency response, because we unfortunately are cursed with the brainworms that force us to understand things in terms of frequency response.
But the hot take here, at least maybe I'm not sure if it is, but for me would be that the vast majority of people don't think of it in terms of the subjectivist language.
So are you
Those
saying
people just think it sounds good or it
It's
sounds bad.
exactly.
Yeah.
They don't think of it in terms of, the dynamics or whatever, right?
Oh, yeah, no, that's just cork sniffer bullshit.
It's just in that specific sphere, which is where we are borrowing from for this
yes?
thing.
Well, it's more
tongue in-
like we're
tongue-in-cheek borrowing.
abusing that sphere.
Sure, abusing it. But the other reason for it is because people often criticize us for graph sniffing too hard, or not describing things in terms of this stuff, because that's how they understand it. So this is us basically doing that.
See, the thing is, it's like often it's funny that like people conflate like relaying your experience in terms of the frequency response with sniffing the graph, because more often I find the people who can't relay their experience in terms of frequency response sniffing the graph too much and sniffing it poorly and not being
Yeah.
able to explain it in terms of frequency response, so they fall back on the dynamics and all of that stuff. Whereas like the people who understand that like the graph is useful for some things but not useful for a lot of other things,
I would
have to fall back on their own understanding, but will still use the terms of frequency response to like relay those things, because they can identify the frequencies they're hearing.
Yeah, I mean, I would say like they're able to identify and relay, particularly the wideband stuff, if they are going to be talking about it like that. It's just that for us now, when we're even perceiving things, and we talked about this before, we're not perceiving things in terms of the sort of effect of whatever that is, the way that maybe people who have that lexicon built up would be.
Much like in this game, we have to put ourselves into that headspace to do it.
But the reality is that you can go back and forth, right? You can, I mean, maybe not for Blaine, but for us, we can do that. For Blaine, he has to become a different person. I mean,
it's more amusing if I do.
Yes, I think it's my favorite part about it. Yeah.
Like that's
to that end. Let's go ahead and get into the game.
Let's do it.
All right, I have something that I heard again at CanJam, which I could reference. It's actually, I think it's a quite good headphone, all things to be considered. I actually recommended that somebody buy it, as a matter of fact. It's got kind of an airy presentation. It's sort of maybe a bit light for some people, but I enjoyed it. There's some presence for the low frequencies, but it's not excessive. You're not talking about overbearing. Yes, for the low end.
There you go.
You're not going to be feeling like the drummer is crawling down your throat or anything like that. But no, I think that it has about the right level of impact and presence.
How's the drummer height?
Pretty bad. Pretty short drummer. Generally speaking, very wide drummer, but very short.
Does he have all of his arms?
Only one. You can only listen to
Def
how
Leppard.
did I forget? Yeah, Def Leppard.
Yeah. Yeah. What has nine arms and sucks? Def Leppard.
They have 5 members. Anyway, keep
The
going.
chat's saying HE1000 is not the HE1000.
He heard it again at a show.
Yeah, no. Here's the funny thing. They didn't have it. They didn't have. Nobody brought the
Nobody?
HE1000 day one. Fucking
Oh.
morons.
Okay.
And I include us in that. We're fucking morons for not
Yeah, we
bringing
should've
the
brought it.
HE1000.
Yeah.
Easily one of our best-selling headphones, and not having it at the booth was a massive oversight.
We
Actually.
should have brought
Someone
the
described this as
490 Pro.
GeoGuessr, but FR. Someday we should do a non-audio stream and just see who wins the competitive GeoGuessr.
We could do a philosophy stream.
Wait, do
We
you
can do
mean
philosophy and
GeoGuessr
GeoGuessr.
actually, or
Yeah.
GeoSniffer?
No, actual GeoGuessr.
I would not be good at
Oh, okay.
I
would-
love GeoGuessr so much.
That's not my zone.
All right, I think that this is probably a bit too.
But it's over your headphone, right? Not an EDM.
Yes, I think it's probably too strident for you two, if I had to guess. But I think that you probably would recommend it to a lot of people. It's a very good value for the money nowadays, at least.
Aria.
Yes.
Oh.
Now, which Aria? We're talking organic or are we talking stealth? Because the
Stealth.
stealth. Okay.
Stealth.
Organic is too spendy.
But you got to pay more for that organic sound and
True.
the low frequency feature.
The feature.
What else do you call it? Shelf mode? I don't know.
Okay.
I remember
got
I
one.
came
Hey,
across.
maybe you want to see
"What's-"
my low frequency feature?
Okay, I got one.
So Blaine picks up chicks at the bar.
So this is a headphone that I got to listen to again this CanJam, and it is definitely on the thinner side of what I'd call acceptable. I don't get a sense of any particularly strong dynamic contrast or note weight or slam or any of those things. It's more of a kind of light and tight presentation. I do get a sense of kind of a hazy, somewhat indistinct timbre, which is a little bit in contrast to its tonality. One might think that it's a very clear presentation otherwise, but to me it sounded a little bit
Omega.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
You and
I
I
was
had
like-
basically the same kind of take on it. I
Yeah.
think. Yeah. I was
It's
gonna
not
say
my
R70X.
favorite sound.
Yeah.
I
but,
also was
why-
going to say R70X until there was the in contrast to its sound signature, and it's like, oh no, I know what this is.
But like the wideband is reasonable, I think. Right?
Yeah, I said it was on the thinner side of reasonable.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't really like the treble on it. The
Yeah,
people were
that's
asking me about that all show, and I was like, you should listen to it for yourself. But for me, it's not the thing.
Now, did you listen to it off the 25th anniversary edition Envy?
That's the only
No, I
thing
did
I
not
listened
listen
to
to it
actually.
off the 25th anniversary edition Envy.
Sounds amazing off that.
Hmm.
Everything.
You have such a fucking crush on that amp.
It's so good. It's so good. Cheat code for headphones. Okay.
Mhm.
Do you have one?
No, it's your turn.
But
Oh, it's my turn. Sorry. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Just did.
Okay. Okay. This is a headphone that is, I would say, is a little bit on the warm side of things. It's smooth, but also highly, highly detailed, highly resolving. It does actually. Yeah.
Wait, what did you say?
Aperio GSE.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
neither of us got to hear it though, so I'm glad we guessed it
That's-
early.
Well, yeah, based on my earlier description. All right, that's kind of unfair.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm trying to think of something that wasn't at CanJam though, because we did describe the things that we heard.
Well, no, I didn't
So-
describe everything that I heard.
Oh, okay. Well then,
I mean, the thing is, there were so few new releases that if it's a new release, we're going to pin it down basically instantly because there were like 4.
Or based on like what we say, for example, if we hear Blaine say, "This headphone sucks," We know what
I
he's
know what that
talking
is.
Yeah.
I mean, I actually considered doing the Among Us, and then I was like, honestly, I used a lot of audiophile terms
You
in
did.
my description of
did.
why I hated it.
In your
So,
creed, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, usually screen. It was prompted. Like I was just in there saying I hate this, and then Andrew was like, describe it to the camera.
I didn't know that you were going to go on a tirade. I wanted you to describe your impression. But
Those were my impressions.
I'm glad you were unfiltered in that regard. I can't use it.
Yeah.
No,
No, I mean
we
that's my
should
goal.
we should put it in something. Anyway, okay.
What is there?
I
Yeah.
have another one. This is it's an IEM, so Blaine's out. This is an IEM that is one of the most dynamic and punchy sounding IEMs that there is. For me, it has a bit it's a bit glary, but it also sounds very resolving and detailed. It has a
Storm?
despite being on the leaner side for its mid range, I still find that it has a good sense of note weight, and
Type
its
4?
nope. I don't know if you're gonna get this one, and its timbre is
It's at the new 64.
nope. The
I
Aspire
didn't hear that actually. Did
or
either of you?
the Solo.
Yeah.
Wait, yeah, I didn't hear it. I have
No.
the Aspire. I have here. I'm not a fan. The Solo I didn't hear. I think Caleb liked it after tip swapping. What else can I say about this? There is a decent sense of air to this IEM. It's one that I was gonna say something about its timbre. It has a
Chat says credenza.
nope. This is, I mean, if I say like I could describe the physical
Do you
thing
know
too.
SA6?
Nope. No, it's not warm like that. It's more like strong, contrasty, bassy kind of
I
thing.
still don't see
Punchy,
anything about that
dynamic.
IEM being warm, but okay. More contrasty.
SA6 is pretty warm, especially with the bass switch. Um, the physical shell itself is quite large, and it's also quite on the heavy side.
Helios?
No, like larger than the Helios, and it's on the heavy
Whoa.
side.
Do you know
Yeah.
Glacier?
Yes.
Yeah. I see why you thought that was going to give it away.
Yeah. I was gonna say it has kind of a glassy timbre, and I was like, that's gonna
does.
give it away.
Too obvious. All right, I
Yeah.
got one.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So this one's it's a very special headphone. There's not a lot of things that are out there that are like it.
SR1A.
It has what?
SR1A.
Yeah.
We're too good.
Okay, I've got another one.
okay.
One.
There you go.
This is I would say a headphone that is heavy in its presentation, if not in its actual weight. It's got a certain unique character to the high frequencies. You've got sort of a different introduction to strings and high voices than you might otherwise. Definitely has plenty on the low end. This is a headphone that you would be quite satisfied with if you were looking for that sort of thing. I find that it's a little bit unnatural with male vocals, though. There's just something about it that puts me off a bit. It almost reminds me in some respects of a Nighthawk, although far less horrible.
Less
It's not
horrible.
Schedrophone, is it?
It is not Schedrophone. It's not as bassy as Schedrophone.
Very few things are.
No, yeah, it's not Schedrophone.
Okay, it reminds you of the Nighthawk, but not as horrible.
Yeah, it's quite well put together for what it is. I think it's
but it's
pretty
not
well received overall. I'd say
it's not a heavy headphone though.
No, certainly not. The only thing that's heavy is the low end. At least if you're coupling it well.
Okay, is it closed back? Are we allowed to guess?
Yes,
it's closed back.
Yeah.
Okay. Is this the EMU teak?
No, actually, I would be much more flattering about the teak. At least if actually, no, that's not true. I haven't heard the teak, but I have heard all of the other TH variants, and those sound actually very timbrally good to me. Like I'm actually a very big fan of them, with the exception of that sort of metallicness.
I don't like there's a lot of them that I don't like. I've heard the teak is Critical tells me that the teak is better.
Maybe.
Yeah,
One
it's
of the better
okay.
ones.
But no,
Blaine
this
can
is
just
much
eat as much
much
10K as
worse
he
than the Teak.
wants, and it just goes. He just doesn't. I'm so
Bro,
jealous.
it's off me like water off a duck's back. 10K does
Yeah.
not faze me at all. So no, this is something I would call much worse than the Teak, although it is more expensive.
Okay.
Oh,
Is it one of the Audio Technicas?
It is not.
it's not a Juris, is it?
No, it is not a Juris.
Radiance?
It is not Radiance. Radiance is much thinner than this in my perception.
But also Radiance is heavy-ish comparatively.
This is lighter than
Yeah.
Radiance, I'd say.
Yeah. Was this that SJY headphone?
No, that I would pretty much just describe as sounding like what I didn't like about an LCD XC.
Ah.
Okay. Someone says 99 Classic.
It is not. No, the 99 Classic would be just giga mud cannon. This thing is bad, but it's not that bad.
Okay. It's a closed back and it's lightweight.
HD820?
No, not the 820.
That's worse.
I might prefer the 820 over this, actually.
Oh, really? Okay, so
Yeah.
you really don't like this.
Yeah.
Stellia. No, Stellia is also heavy.
No.
Huh.
All right, come on, ask a question.
Dynamics?
Yeah.
I think that relative to the rest of its family, it's considered less dynamic.
It's family. DCA Aeon 2 Noir?
Isn't that the one that's considered the most dynamic of the DCAs? But no, you're barking up the wrong tree. You were closer before.
Okay. And it's not one of those Fostex. Oh, Denon. Denon D. Okay. The Denon, I want that 5200 because it looks beautiful.
It does look very nice.
That's like, wow, that's, yeah. It's weird. Fostex T50 or like what other close back?
Batiste.
Yeah. What other?
The coloring of the mid-range of the Batiste drives me nuts. It legitimately does slightly remind me of the Nighthawk in that both of them have just like this discontinuity between the low and the mid.
Did you say Batiste? Is it Batiste?
Yeah, it is Batiste.
Okay. So the thing is that region of the Batiste is highly variable because for me, I don't get any of that. And it is, you can actually measure this effect if you angle it slightly differently or change the pad deformation. In some situations, it's perfectly fine. In others, it's like this massive, like 1.5K or something like that feature that shows up. Probably, maybe it's a driver resonance or something because those drivers do have a thing there. But yeah, I've observed the feature that you're talking about, so I can see that.
You got anything else, Griffin?
Drawing a blank. Yeah, maybe it's because I haven't been listening to headphones all that much recently.
Goes to headphone convention, doesn't listen to headphones.
I mean, yeah, I feel like well, for one, I was working, so it's not only so much listening I can do.
By the way, Sebastian says it's Kedra, and they misspelled his thing, his badge.
They misspelled his name. That's great.
That's funny.
But I'm going with Kendra from
You're
now
Sebastian Kendra forever now.
It's Kendra, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I got one. All right. Okay. So this is a headphone that before I tried it, people praised it as one of the more dynamic headphones of its class.
But and after they tried it, they didn't.
Well, after I tried it,
changed the narrative.
Yeah, I stopped seeing so many people talking about that.
Phone.
What's up?
Phone.
Borealis.
No. Interesting that's where your minds went first. No, I would say both of those are significantly more dynamic than this headphone.
Okay.
This headphone has a kind of strange spatial presentation where there's a sense of things being placed slightly to the front of you, but not in a really deep sense. So it's all kind of right here. And there's kind of like
Tell me about the timbre.
The timbre is on the plasticky side. It's a little bit incoherent sounding as well. I would say the timbre is probably the biggest complaint about this product, as it is meaningfully colored and a bit weird on what?
You do?
This is the D8000.
No.
Damn it.
Were
Is
people
this
talking
some
about that
weird
being
thing
the
from
invention?
Harmonic Dine or something?
No. So what I find kind of puzzling about this headphone in particular is that a lot of people extol its virtues in terms of its bass response and tactility and, again, punch.
LCDX.
What's up?
LCDX.
Yeah. Yeah.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
It's not
And that,
actually.
but so there
Yeah.
is a lot of this is also like there have been so many versions of that headphone, and there's one in particular. So the the memory foam pads were like the worst thing of all time. I think it's memory foam.
So, hot
But
take.
they're the before the memory foam, they may have actually had the best version of that.
Well, basically what they did with the newest revision is go back to the old pad design.
But they also
But
changed the magnets to the structure.
they have phasers now, which
Yeah.
is I'm not a fan of
Well,
personally.
they also
Yeah, they get poked in the ears.
There's also different a different magnet array, like the entire I believe.
Oh yeah, probably. But
Yeah.
regardless, I mean, I said hot take, and the hot take was I had an LCDX with memory foam pads, and
You liked it better?
the mid-range was absolutely atrocious. Let's not get it twisted. But I do feel like that kind of bass presentation that people talked about was actually there on that. And when I put the memory or when I put the
No, new
normal
one.
open cell foam pads on there, it became much less comfortable. The seal felt a lot less consistent, and the bass suffered as a result of I think the second point.
I was completely the opposite. For me, it was so much
Well,
more
I know
comfortable when they
you
moved
were,
to
yeah.
the
This
new
was when I
pad.
was just a lowly
Yeah.
consumer of headphone content,
Yeah.
and I consumed your
Gonna
review
consume.
voraciously.
Ah, okay.
Wait,
yeah,
you
no.
actually watched our reviews?
Shame.
Yes, I was like the stereotypical like niche audience member
Niche.
of this
Thank you
show
for
from like
niche.
2020 to 2022.
Speaking of Niche, I met the guy from Niche Audio, CT. He was at the taco night.
Oh, you met
Nice
Christian,
guy.
yeah.
Yeah, nice guy. Nice to chat with. Seems very sensible.
I do actually have one more.
Okay, I had one more, but I've forgotten what it was, so go ahead.
You forgot.
Yeah.
So this is a headphone that was really, it came to me with the highest of praise. People were telling me, oh, Blaine, you've got to try this. You've got to try this for years, actually. And I was really quite surprised the first time I put it on because it wasn't really at all like I expected.
Cosmo.
So everyone...
for years?
No. Cosmo won't be remembered in years. No, but so this is... Everyone was really going up and down saying, oh, this is the best built thing. Oh, the bass in this is mind-blowing, etc., etc. The treble is the perfect thing for a high-end headphone. I listened to it and I'm like, my goodness, this is harsh. This headphone doesn't seem...
LCD 5.
No.
LCD 4.
No. But really, the thing that actually kind of bugged me the most is everyone's saying, oh, this is the standard of build quality for high-end headphones. But honestly, it didn't even feel that good. I was really quite taken aback at that time because particularly...
Sony Z1R.
No. I actually think that's pretty well put together.
Well, that's fine.
I would agree.
I'm guessing it.
But no. In general, I mean, I guess you could say, oh, the timbre isn't that off. But really, I just did not have an enjoyable experience. And here's the worst part about it. It's one of the few headphones that's really made me crank up the volume in a way that I actually would worry about my hearing with. And I think that because of that, it gave people this sense that it has this authoritative bass, etc. But I really think it's just a matter of people were listening to it too loud.
Is it the Utopia?
No. I could not crank the Utopia because the ear spikes would spike my ears.
Yeah, this sounds perfectly normal to me for the treble. No ear spikes.
Yeah, no, not for me, sadly. I wish. No. So this one, I'll give you a hint. It's a planar.
It's not the Fostex T50RP, is it?
No. This is a very conventional planar. This is one that has the...
And you said years ago.
Yes.
Well, yeah. Very conventional.
Years ago. I mean, for
So
best
no, I may
build,
be unpopular, but I know that there are other
HE6?
people who are with me on saying this thing sounds shockingly harsh relative to its
HE6?
overall level of brightness. No.
years ago could be because like there's the stealth from DCA, which is what I think
You
it is.
guys are so modern.
But that's too modern, right? That's the problem, right? Like Blaine thinks in terms
I
of
said
like,
HE6.
decades.
HE900?
It's not a it's a planar, you said.
Oh yeah, duh.
HE500. That's
No, you guys,
it's
you
just
guys
like,
have gotten further away as a function of time. It's hilarious.
well, like you said, it's old, and those ones are old. How's it further away? Have we
Blaine
gone
is a
too?
tree, Mark says.
Blaine is. I'm quoting somebody here, and if anybody guesses, then you win a medal. But Blaine is the moss that grows on the tree that lets you know where the sun is.
So no, I'm the tree that the moss grows on.
Oh
Actually,
yeah,
no,
Griffin is the
everyone's.
moss. Griffin is
So
the moss.
you guys are all jumping to Hi-Fi Mans,
Oh,
and you're jumping to
monoprice.
Hi-Fi
Somebody says
Mans.
monoprice M10. No, but monoprice, that wasn't good build quality.
No. So no, but the Hi-Fi Man, for one thing, as I said, people held this up as a standard of good build. No one ever said the HE500 was well built.
That's true.
Two,
LCD2
overall,
original LCD2.
which version?
LCD2F.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah.
The 2F actually had. Griffin said I'm immune to 10K. The one on the LCD 2F, I think because I cranked it because there's nothing above 2K, it actually bugged me. It actually sounded harsh.
The thing about everybody did that whole like the base texture meme with the Odysseys, right? Back then. And
Well,
the reason for that was in large part because it just had a
well, that's
it
the thing.
wasn't
So
based
people
on it.
it's actually not flat. It's actually like, I guess from your perspective, like DF tilt, like
Well,
under 1K. Like it's like there's
Yeah.
like a gentle rise from the base to like the 1K
yeah,
area,
sure.
which like brings forth the textural overtones of bass.
There is
And
also
then
the
after
element
that, it
of
falls off a cliff.
yeah.
So you do
Well, okay,
get
so hold on. The
a
thing is,
bass-centric
you're
presentation.
saying it's like this. The reality is that you could take 5 different versions of those headphones and get 5 very different frequency responses.
Well, not under like 2 kilohertz. They would all be pretty similar, but I know what you mean.
Depending on
Also,
the year,
there's-
depending on the pads,
There's a
depending on
pad
so many things.
variation thing.
Yeah, like
mostly
it's
there.
yeah.
Back in the day, I knew a guy who was such a believer in the fucking Odyssey lottery that when he got a pair and listened to it and didn't like it, he'd pop it and say that it arrived broken, so he got a new one.
Oh, that's horrible.
Yeah.
That's so
No,
shitty.
that's funny.
Oh my god.
I mean, that was a pretty dick move, but
That's
Yeah, oh,
terrible.
absolutely. I know.
I'm actually offended that people told me that the LCDs were well built, though. The first time I took apart a pair of those, I was like, what the fuck?
They look nice.
They do.
They don't.
I like
They
those.
don't.
So
I just
actually,
think
I
they're
don't
too
love the
heavy.
look of LCD2. I like the look of LCD4.
The LCD 4 kind of looks good. I mean, it's at the very least, it's leaning into the cringe. You know, they just said, okay, we're going to put chrome on it, which I appreciate.
Hell yeah.
The other ones, Odyssey does not have a good history of aesthetics, in my opinion.
I disagree. I think they're beautiful. Let's move on.
Mr.
Fight
So, do
Club.
Wood
you guys
hater
wanna
over
bother
here.
with Fight Club? I feel like
No,
it's
I think
not the most
Odyssey does it well.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so Fight Club.
Do you want to do that? I feel like it's not an especially
Yeah,
like
Interesting.
we're a little bit more
We
than
had some
3
other
hours
ones.
in, so we
Yeah.
might just want to move to Spicy Hour,
Okay, let's move to Spicy Hour.
and we can fight chat too.
Okay. We did have some other potential topics for Fight Club, but maybe we can move those to
Yeah, no, like
another-
if you have something, we could just include it in Spicy Hour and make it a fight with chat too.
Yeah.
Chat says LCD4 Ogo. Yeah, kind of. Okay, someone said that the EL8 felt well built. You haven't. It's
Let's
been
get
too
the
long, and
peppers
nostalgia has clouded your memory. I have one of those. It does not feel well built.
Well, you had one of those. It's in pieces.
I mean, it's back. The pieces were sent back
right.
to me.
That's right. Let's get some peppers, guys. Peppers in the chat. Give us your spiciest audio takes, or if it's a cold take, put some. If you think it's a cold take, put some ice cubes.
Closed backs over open backs. I mean,
That is a spicy take.
I mean, at some
Only
fundamental
here,
levels, I
though.
think it's obviously true. Like SNR, right?
Yeah. For the longest time, even when I joined the hobby, I think finding a closed
Mark.
back was like the most pressing thing to me. Because yeah, I do enjoy kind of the separation of being in like a having my helmet on is, I guess, the analogy I'll use. They just don't sound very good.
You have a helmet on a lot during your early life.
All right. Griffin's shirt has a lot of 10 kilohertz energy. That's true. IEMs sound better with a full seal.
Without a full seal.
Oh, without a full seal.
Now that's
That was
okay,
so
bud.
spicy.
You're gonna have to.
My
explain
brain
that
just
one.
tricked me into like reading that incorrectly because the alternative is so nonsensical to me.
Yeah, no,
This
that's a
is
real
the
hot take.
spiciest take I've seen in a while.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really up there.
You know, that
And
could,
that's
it
our
could
boy.
be true though with
That's
TWS or
Miles.
like ANC TWS IEMs would have the compensation thing. Maybe. Because for a lot of them, and I've been testing them recently, like I've tested the Pixel Buds recently, they don't actually seal properly. They just fit in there, and the seal is almost always partial. And then there's the active compensation bit that seemingly is occurring. But I don't know if that's what this person means.
I'm sorry. I just cannot. I need
Rob's
Miles
shit
to
posts
expand
are
on
too
this
advanced
because
for me, and I don't understand them. I don't even know what he's referencing.
No. Miles is complaining about the occlusion effect.
Oh, well.
Not that
yeah.
IEMs themselves like sound better when they are leaking.
But can't you just have like different configurations and venting?
just have a vented front volume or have deeper insertion so that the occlusion resonance is a higher frequency. That's what Edmotic did. That's why I like Edmotics, even though they poked my eardrums.
That's why you have such cursed takes about headphones. It's because Edmotics poked your eardrums.
Yeah, probably.
Yep.
Headphi's Jude is a great salesman. CanJam Headphi intro is a lot of shills, especially his take on campfire audio, which are all rubbish tuning. So what I will say is that like Jude is like a level past us where he knows like all of the things we know. Like his grasp on the literature is like probably better than mine, probably better than Andrew's, probably on the level of Blaine's, or maybe
I have
slightly
corrected
below.
him on a few points.
Or maybe
he has a
slightly
very
below.
strong understanding of the history of things.
Yes. But
in that
he has
respect,
come back around from that to just caring about the experiences. Because up to a certain point, and this was the original topic of Fight Club, which was are current measurement rigs actually good enough for anything? I think Judas had enough experience and time with them to conclude they are not sufficient for doing the sum total of explanation he would need to categorize his experiences.
I don't know that I quite, and I love Jude. He's a wonderful person to chat with. I don't know if I quite agree with that. I think he's just given up any sort of fight. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't care about fighting people on things that he might view to be an uphill battle, and he doesn't care about correcting people on things that he knows
which is base.
But he also, this is from previous talks, I don't know if he believes this now, but he has suggested that maybe there are other things other than the frequency response, like for example Blaine's favorite subject, things in the time domain.
Well, I mean, don't worry about it. Given enough time, I can beat anyone in submission.
I don't know that he is, but he suggested maybe there could be something in there, and but like he also knows what we know about all of the this as well, right? So it's not like he's
he's aware of the arguments to the contrary.
Yeah,
I think he's just also aware of the fact that again his experience with measurements has
so like I just get the sense
experiences.
Yeah, Like, he gets to that point, and I just feel like he's like, okay, but like the whole rest of the audio world doesn't see it this way, and in order to like, what would be the point in trying to? And I've kind of come up against this myself sometimes, because it's like I was gonna make a video on like the whole like technicalities is nonsense thing, right? Like, I wanted to I felt like compelled to be like, okay, like people are thinking of this wrong, because every goddamn day people are like, well, how I mean, graphs well, but how about the technicalities? I'm like, fucking stop. Right? But then I realized, like, why? Like, why do I care? It's just that, like, that is trying to correct everybody's idea about that is an exercise in narcissism or something, pun
Yeah,
Yes.
that's
intended.
why I do it.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I don't
No,
I get
I get what you
it's like,
mean.
why,
Like,
you know?
debunking something is not for anyone else's benefit other than your own.
Yeah,
Where I
it's
think
That's not
for
true.
it's well,
well,
okay,
hold
it is
on.
is not true, but there is a
Let me
self-indulgent
finish.
element to that.
Where I think the value is in something like that is offering an explanation that actually does help people understand the things they're talking about.
Yes, totally. But the whole impulse is a self-indulgent one. The impulse to correct people on their, like, the wrongness of whatever. There is a helpful element to it, but there's also a self-indulgent element to the feeling, to being compelled to do it. And I feel like Jude has just completely given up on that, right? Because he's just like, I don't need to. I have no reason to do this. So if people believe what they do, let them.
So I want to stipulate a nuance or a reframing to Griffin's comment, because I get what you were saying, Griffin. Your comment was, it's not helpful to the person that you're correcting when you're correcting them, right? Like, the impulse is not to aid them. From my point of view, the big social benefit is to help the people who are witness to it, right?
Right.
Because
Yeah.
there's a lot of people who don't know shit and who will just believe whatever someone states loudly and confidently.
I mean, that's just the general, like, truth of like a debate or some argumentative dialogue at all, is you're never going to convince the person you're arguing with, rarely, let's say, or the people who are already so staunchly in favor of that position. It's more the people who are undecided or in the middle who you're
Yep.
speaking to, and that's
No,
just
I mean, the
good.
people who you
It's
argue with are
practical.
basically just
They're the
they're the
foil.
punching bag.
Yeah. Yeah, but like,
Um,
I think there is a different element in that, though, because I don't think Jude is even bothering to engage in a debate. I think he's just like, all right, this is what people believe. All right, let's
I think
let
that
him.
Jude is kind of inscrutable to us because we can't really know what makes him do the things that he does. Like, people like this narrative of him as the shill because HeadFi runs on sponsor money. And people who know him obviously don't tend to perceive him that way because he seems to be a very unconcerned person about that kind of stuff. And honestly, when I've talked to him, he's mostly seemed interested in the facts and the science. I think that it's really difficult. Like, my gut read is that Jude is not that motivated by the money. We
He's
can't
not.
actually know that.
I
Well, we
like.
can't know that.
I'd say it's
Like, we can't.
unlikely. I think he's got.
Yeah.
I think he cares. That this is a passion thing for him, and so as long as he can afford to continue doing it,
It would
that's
be incongruent with what I perceive as his values and personality. But I don't
yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know
No, I
him
mean,
that well.
listen, my perception of him as a person is as someone who is really interested in this and who is much less cynical than the rest of us are, at least of the manufacturers. Like, I think that
He's gone full Chad.
he has my level of cynicism towards the community, but like less than my level of cynicism towards the manufacturers would be my take.
Probably true.
No, I think that's a good analysis.
Yeah.
I would
Which
That's
say.
isn't
actually
to say
one
that
of.
he's not cynical. Just
No,
it's
sure.
hard to be more cynical about manufacturers than I am.
Yeah, we also see less of that though, which is I think where this claim might come from.
Um, it's one of my sort of like sad points about this CanJam is that I didn't get a chance to have a several hour long conversation with Jude, which I normally look forward to with these events. So
Jude is
next
one
time,
of the major features of CanJam.
yeah,
Honestly,
Absolutely.
like, I do think that actually Jude is one of those people where if he was less private, he would have a much better reputation. Because Jude is often speaking publicly, but he's usually speaking publicly as a representative of CanJam or because there's some stupid
If anybody
scandal or whatever.
recorded his private conversations, they would have a very different perception of who he is.
Yeah, and I think that they would see him as a much more human figure who was like this premise that he's a hyper effective salesman or shill would be very effectively dissolved by looking at what he actually says to people openly when you're at a show. But the thing is, people online don't see that because they're not at the show. They're not talking to Jude and seeing how surprisingly frank he is.
Mhm. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, let's keep going. No, planar isn't the best driver technology. Has anybody said that it is?
I mean, I
Yeah,
think it's
ton
the
of
best for
people.
some things in some applications.
My favorite headphones happen to be planars, but I don't think they are
Yeah, I mean, it's
necessary.
like
To me, they are objectively the worst in every possible way. Next
There you go.
question.
Shut up. Smegot EW200 sounds better than Blessing to Dust.
Smegot.
No, that's
I'm calling it Smegot from now on.
Craig says IEMs make closeback superfluous. With the exception of ergonomic considerations, I generally do agree with that, actually.
Okay.
IEMs are better for isolation. What?
No, it's just that, yeah, ergonomics are really the only reason I would have to
well, and length mode issues.
Disagree.
But the thing is, length mode issues are way less bad than coupling issues with closed back. Like, it's not
closed
close.
backs still generally have bad treble anyway.
That's the bigger issue, is that in practice they're often worse tuned. See, I have slightly a different complaint. Like, coupling issues, it's true, that's a problem, but I'm not going to say it's exhaustively low frequency content that is affected by this, because it's not, but overwhelmingly that is affected by it. Whereas with length mode stuff, that's in the higher frequency stuff always, and that makes IEM responses at the eardrums generally kind of spiky and is impossible to, it's very difficult to, compensate for. Whereas if I'm EQing,
just add a resistor, like an acoustic resistor.
You have to know where you have to know where that. Yeah, but you have to know.
Don't if you just dampen it. That's the thing. Everyone's so focused on Helmholtz resonators that they forgot about damping.
Yeah, I know, but still, I'm just saying from an end user perspective, if I'm going, not as a designer, right, as a listener perspective.
Well, as an end user, just get some of those little Knowles dampers and shove it in there.
I guess. I don't know. Yeah.
No balls.
Resonate.
Or just get automotics and jam them deeply.
Yeah, or automotics. I mean, automotics don't have that problem. That's actually legitimately something I like about them.
Yeah.
AT says piezos are 100% gimmick. Yes. Full stop. Yes. Nobody. Yeah. Harchu, rare LR Harchu take. The least scientific mumbo jumbo is superior to cutting edge research in describing sound if the individual perception matches it better. No, because this is the Library of Alexandria or Library of Babylon project problem or whatever it is. You know that thing where there's that randomly generated text on the internet? If you go long enough, you will find some random intersection of a random bullshit. Yes.
Get your case.
Yes.
Huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and that is the problem. You cannot judge something by matching in one case. What we need to judge these things by is their general predictive power. And the general predictive power is a measure where subjective mumbo jumbo is not going to succeed, and that's what makes it mumbo jumbo. That's what differentiates the mumbo jumbo from things that are just abstractions of what we can also document in the science.
This was one of the things where I think Dr. Olive was talking about the sound guys target in his talk, where they're very thrilled, understandably, whenever their target gets tested and it does well, because it did actually, like, okay, it was statistically tied with Harman IE, but it was technically higher, right, on the right. And so, like, there's I think I'm not sure if it's him that noted it. I think it was, but basically, like, also saying it doesn't matter how they got there, right? It's like he was saying that he was kind of like lamenting that, like saying, like, they don't seem to care that whether they got there for the right reasons, but we'll always love it when it gets cited.
I mean, no one's ever unhappy about pulling the winning lottery ticket. Doesn't mean that they knew it was ahead of time. So.
Yeah. But I did enjoy that he kind of called out the methodology there a bit.
I mean,
but
honestly, it's not the worst, but it's also not good.
yeah, it's the is claim to the ought claim thing.
Capper says he
Yeah, I mean,
hates
it's
the
literally
50
just
millimeter planar or peerless driver.
peerless. Yeah, it's pretty meh.
I just hate that it falls apart and you look at it funny.
Yeah, don't like that.
Yeah, no,
And
I agree. All of the implementations I've heard have had fairly weird mids.
and treble.
Yeah.
Neil Brogan says, "Can you be an audiophile but into absolutely terrible music? I sure hope so."
Most of us are.
Yeah.
I'm not.
No, just yeah. Like I mean, those are conflated because like Blaine would not want to be an audiophile, but also listens to terrible music. So
I probably meet the general definition of an audiophile, unfortunately.
I guess. I was thinking about this, and this is just me and my happy thoughts, but like to me, there's a very clear answer to why audio, and
Why not?
so like okay, so like you could be this nerdy about anything, right? And like nobody needs to do this, right? But we've chosen audio, and through all of the cynicism and the things that we learn about, and this, and like this basically the mountains of shit that is this industry, at the end of the day there's still a wonderful experience there to be had. And so to me it's like that nugget of gold is enough to, it kind of like shines through the mountain of shit to the
Yeah, I
point
mean,
where the
we're all
answer
united
to,
by the love of music.
yeah, and like and also just like the like having good experiences with music, right? Like that in and of itself is the benefit of that experience is the clear answer to why audio.
Aaron Burr says, "Only audiophiles listen to Diana Krall and Patricia Barber, parentheses derogatory."
Okay,
Good take.
Diana Krall
Take
is very different from Patricia Barber. Diana Krall is
Derogatory.
no, Patricia Barber
derogatory.
is genuinely
Derogatory.
good. Diana Krall is a bit generic. Not a bad singer by any means, just generic. But Patricia Barber is esoteric and weird, and
Derogatory.
I
you can
think
say that
you
about
could really
literally
just say
anything.
like normal people are not listening to vocal jazz, just like as
Normal
a
people
rule.
could listen to Diana Krall and go, "Huh, okay." Normal people
Yeah, they're
listening to
not
Patricia
choosing to
Barber
though.
would go, "This is weird, and I don't like it."
I don't think it was that
I
weird.
think
Honestly.
that most
It's weird.
people interacting with Patricia Barber would say this is weird and I don't like it.
It's weird, yeah, exactly,
And I don't like it.
yeah,
Derogatory.
and sure, but I
From
don't think I would put like Diana Krall's a lot more like normie friendly.
From Heart U, an excellent all-rounder FR isn't possible in IEMs like headphones. Parentheses, new meta breaks with enough bass for certain genres. So two things. One, I think there's an argument that it might actually be more possible with IEMs than headphones. Outer ears are fucking weird. And that's all. I'm going to leave it at that. The second thing is new meta breaks with enough bass for certain genres. Did you try tilting up the mid-range and treble? Because usually, like if you try to put a big
understand the
bass shelf
question.
on like a 10 decibel slope diffuse field, it's going to sound warm poo as hell. You're going to need more treble and likely
Sorry,
more upper mid-range as well.
I missed the prompt. What was it?
An excellent all-rounder FR isn't possible in IEMs like with headphones. Parentheses, new meta breaks with enough bass for certain genres. So I think he's just boosting bass
what
on
does that
top
mean
of
by
like a 10
new
decibel
meta?
slope JM1 or something, and it doesn't like that. But you should tilt the other side of the equation to balance the extra bass.
But why I'm confused by the phrasing of that then, because it breaks with enough bass. I don't know what that means. Like it
It just
breaks
means
when you have
that the
too much
mid-range
bass.
presentation that we talk about is not good when you start boosting more than probably like 6 dB bass or whatever.
Yeah, but like that's not enough bass. That's too much bass. But the same is true for any tuning. If you
Right, but
put
some
too much
people
bass,
like a lot of bass.
and then you just need more ear gain. Like to me, that's a very straightforward. You just need to
I
balance
mean,
it.
look, or you're a cluster 4 listener and you could even do more bass and less treble. Like,
Yeah, to me, that's
Or you're
not
that
like
one guy who wanted the boost to the treble and the upper mids.
You say
Listener
that one guy as if
23
it
or
wasn't you.
32. I wasn't there.
Oh, okay, but it does, to me, the big thing about that isn't necessarily strictly the base level. It's the concept of generic HRTF. So you could put whatever filters on that you would want to. It's just that seems to make more sense as a starting point because we're bypassing the pinna with IEMs. Not
Maybe.
whatever, but like you could basically, like, if you put different filters on it, you could achieve whatever, and I'm sure you could find a way to make it preferable. You just need to balance it.
Okay. Morning Sun says, at CanJam, a guy said to me that IEMs are more detailed than headphones. Never heard a take like that. Is there any possibility of truth there? There is not merely possibility, it is factually correct. The answer is simple. IEMs allow for very high levels of isolation, and in that scenario, you can hear very small details.
However, if somebody is referring to detail as a better match with their HRTF, it is also unlikely.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, the question is whether you mean literal detail in the sense of can you discriminate
But most
very
people are not.
small things.
Most people are.
Yeah, IEMs are, though, literally best if you wanted to hear, for example, a very quiet tone and you were, in a room with any normal level of noise. So,
but you're also going to have to deal with all kinds of, you're also going to have to deal with all kinds of other problems when it comes to the fact that IEMs are going to be, how they're received is going to be very more substantially from across individuals because the pin is being bypassed. So the HRTF needs to be assumed, or the tuning at the eardrum needs to be assumed for the HRTF features.
Lucian Imink says DSP cables are the future of wired headphones. That's absolutely not true, but I wish it was. The audiophile industry will never accept that, and the consumer market will never accept wires.
I also wish that the subjunctive had been properly used. That's just me being an asshole. All right.
Hot Sauce says, I know I've seen Blaine before. He's a beefed up Colton from LTT. Not really sure how to process that one.
We you know what? We haven't seen them in the same room together.
That is true.
We could get them together.
That'd be very strange. Lawaris Karachi says a lot of new XMEMs with USB-C cable coming, but most people complaining about sharp and lacking bass. Pepper emoji. I don't know what that means.
It's a bunch of brands are coming out with, like Moondrop just announced a wired USB-C MEMS IEM. It's not the only driver in it, but the thing with these, and it was true of planars as well, is that the brand isn't going to use the driver in a way that makes it not hard to hear, that in a way that makes the driver's contribution opaque. Like, they're going to tune the thing to make it eminently clear that there is a MEMS in there, which means you're going to be getting a lot of trouble.
X memes, is that what we say?
Yeah, I mean, look, the same thing happened with planar IEMs, and it still is. Like, planars have like legitimate benefits in the like lower 2/3 of the response of an IEM, let's say, but they're basically always used as tweeters because that's what
they don't want to put a big
audiophiles
enough one in
with planars. Wait, what'd you say?
Well, and it's also because they don't want to put a big enough one in. Like, if you have a tiny planar, it's not going to be useful at low frequencies.
Yeah, no. Yes, it's not going to be any better than a dynamic driver or anything like that.
Or worse.
It is
Often worse.
The next spicy take's a good one we could talk about.
Yeah, so Watashi Kini Naramas says, audio science literature should stop using a single line a la GF or Harman and instead use preference bounds along with general tuning rules. I mean, yes. That's not a hot take. That's what we talk about.
Okay,
Dr. Olive is starting to use the preference bounds concept.
Okay. I'm sorry, whatever your name is. Are we just going to gloss over the fact that Blaine read that?
I was just like, what the
fuck? What is happening? What just happened? Are we just going to ignore that?
So in general, that's something that has some uptake with obviously Dr. Olive. That's something that we're pushing quite aggressively.
You're just trying to move right by it. You're just trying to pretend like that didn't happen.
Also,
why do you know how to read that, Blaine?
What do you mean?
What
It
do
just
you
means I'm
what do I
interested in
mean?
Japanese.
Oh, okay. Well,
'Cause he's a
okay. You
weeb.
said the quiet part out loud. There you go.
Um,
I mean, I just put it into Google Translate. I'm just not going to say weeb name because we might have two weeb names.
okay. Uh, I did also like that Sean agreed with me. To quote Sean, you need to have some sort of guideline because you could have anything from shit to jewels within the preference bounds, and he's right.
Yeah, no, there's. So I really think that the problem there is that you actually need to have a multivariate metric of some sort, which assesses how much do things wiggle around, what is the relationship of the bass
This
and
is
treble.
this is what Constantine said as well. On
Yeah,
the same
I
time.
mean, the basic problem is that fits with
Ye-
a line isn't good enough, and neither is fits inside of an
Well,
area
so I
for
do
the
think
same
fits inside
reasons.
of an area is better than fits with a line.
It is better, but it's not good enough
So
because you
the
can.
other problem with because you're basically having an indicator for like a smoothness metric in a sense, right? Kind of like does this do
Yeah,
this thing? But isn't the issue? And correct me if I'm wrong here, but like isn't the issue there that we don't have a strong indication of what people prefer as it relates to that? I mean, you brought up this point yourself in our dialogue with Dr. Olive some time ago that
yeah.
like it's intuitive, but we don't actually know how what that should be.
There are extreme cases where we can probably just conjecture. Like if something is plus minus 6 dB, we know that people don't tend to like that as much as something that's got less peak and dip. How where that transitions to either inaudibility or much more likely preferential indifferentiation is something that we legitimately don't
Or
know.
or what about, for example, I mean, this gets also even murkier when we consider HPTF variation and how you could have a lot more of those potential effects, especially if you're trying to plot that. It's
Yeah,
just
I
it
mean the thing
becomes
is we need multiple plots to assess headphones.
yeah.
Like that's the unfortunate thing. I want to say about the lines versus areas, it's just about whether you care about false negatives or false positives. Using a line will produce a colossal number of false negatives. That is to say, this headphone
Mhm.
bad, even though subjectively it's well received. An
Yep.
area, the larger it gets, the more false positives it will let in, where it'll say this is okay, even though it's dog
Even though
shit.
it's yeah. I still think I still like the idea of uh the sort of like shading, where you can see like the stronger shading is in the largest group and the or most likely to be preferred, and then as it you can have like weaker shading as it gets to the fringes, and that way you have an indication of like, well, if it falls in this range, there's still a chance that somebody might prefer it if they are in this group, but it's not everything is equal you know within this range, because you have an indication of what those actual responses might should be. That to me seems like, and then you don't have like hard limits on the bounds.
I think realistically, the world that I want to move towards is one where we can identify the ranges of variation in human anatomy and interaction between headphones and human anatomy, yada yada, and
Hmm.
pin down to a fairly narrow bound where something should be. I mean, preferential variation as well. And that's probably going to amount to having a bunch of overlapping areas, which ultimately then narrow into a corridor that things actually must progress upon to be, good. Maybe for your particular, I mean, Griffin sent me some data that indicates there's an ethnic component of HRTF, which of course makes sense. So maybe
Hmm.
if you're East Asian,
Small,
yeah, well,
very
I
small.
mean, not that
still
small.
still worth
The data
including.
I sent you was fairly tight across the two different ethnicities
Yeah,
I was talking.
and you find that JM1 is in fact not racist.
Well, all right. So, but what I'm
Yeah,
saying here is, if you're an East Asian person who likes, who with speakers likes more bass, that might mean that we can stratify it into the point where there's like a, plus minus 2 dB window of where you're probably going to like a response most if it falls in there. But then if we have something where we're just prognosticating for the whole population, we have the variation of everyone's ears, the variation of everyone's preferences, how we best show where things fit I mean, like one option would be doing this is the most correlated to this, right? Like we could say, oh, some people like quite a lot of bass in headphones or in speakers, and maybe we should say, oh, there's a cluster of those people, and we use their the thing as a basis. That's something we've thought about. Or maybe we should say, oh, well, this is what the median preference is the closest to, and it depends on your goal. It depends on what you're trying to figure out with the data and what the story you're trying to tell, because ultimately data visualization is communication, and what it communicates has to be intentional. Otherwise, you end up communicating gibberish.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of philosophical questions that are involved here, which makes Griffin unhappy.
All right. Let's do a couple more because we do have to end. Otherwise, it won't be pulled by the podcast.
Actually, we got 20 minutes, so let's
do a couple more. An
equal loudness curves for your. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to read the Hartu one, unless we already did that one.
Oh,
an excellent all-rounder FR isn't possible in IEMs like with headphones.
That's what
you did. You did.
Yeah.
Oh, you did that. Okay, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Scott says equal loudness curves for your listening levels need to be taken into account along with FR.
Who said this?
Scott.
Scott Pledger?
Scott Pledger.
Scott. I expect better from you.
Oh, we love Scott. Scott is the man.
So, I mean, what is your qualm with that, Blaine? Is it just that the equal loudness research itself is flawed?
Well, my qualm with that is that we know that what?
I just read his other one that y'all should not still be going. I've been on a whole hike and had a very close encounter, a very close moose encounter, and y'all still be going.
Yeah, I mean we've all had moose encounters in our time.
I had a bear encounter. I had a bear encounter that was like really.
Have you not had a moose encounter?
I have not had a moose encounter.
Haven't spent enough
time. Do you touch grass at all?
Minimally.
He doesn't touch.
I live in like a city-ish type area, so it's mostly just like walks around my general vicinity.
If you touched grass, you would encounter a moose.
I don't know.
I think that's actually the absolute bar.
I don't even know if there are meese in my area.
That's fucked up, man.
Yeah.
Anyway,
go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
No, I was just going to talk about how instead of a moose sighting, it was like a bear that was like 5 feet from me. Just while I was walking down a path explaining why we don't need to be afraid of wild animals, and then there's a bear right there.
I mean, you don't need to be afraid of them; just be cautious.
No, but yeah, exactly.
That happened to me when I was out shooting recently. Actually,
there are no mooses in my location.
I like.
There was like a black bear that was like 30 feet away from. Thankfully, it was just the road when we were driving in. But it was just like, yeah, no, that's just a fucking whole ass bear there.
Yeah,
it wasn't bothering anybody. We didn't bother him, but still.
Sorry, to get back to the equal loudness thing, did he mean actually what I'm wondering is if he means like pink noise normalized or something like that?
No, what he means, I'm almost certain what he means is that we need to pay attention to the listening levels that people use. And the problem with that is that we don't actually have any objective data that indicate that there is a listening level dependency for preferred FR. We have a bunch of conjecture that people have been making for the last 60 years, but I am literally aware of no data that suggests that people prefer a different FR at different levels.
Well, what about, well, I mean, it's interesting, but so do you remember when Dimitri was asking, what about the stimulus? At Sean's
talk? Yeah.
Yeah. I do think that there is I do think there's a there when it comes to program material that has yet to be properly explored, or like,
well, no, because it's not the average. Like this is probably one of the reasons. Well, this is conceivably one of the reasons.
I wasn't talking about equal loudness, by the way. I was talking about. I think Dimitri talking about program material might have been gesturing towards well, I guess lower average dynamic range, higher average loudness, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
or the spectral content of the program, like those things.
Well, that's the one where I feel like we have a more conclusive, like, no, it doesn't make that much of a difference.
Ooh, I wouldn't say that.
You wouldn't?
No.
Based on Sean's data? Explain.
So for Sean's data, we have. So, all right. To be clear, I'm not saying we're talking about things that shift you from one listener class to another, but I am saying that you could be easily seeing variation of north of 2 dB in terms of preferred bass or treble levels between two
Right. I'm
different
saying
pieces
that's
of
not
music.
much. I'm not saying it doesn't make a difference.
Okay, so Scott is saying, isn't it conjecture that the shape of the FR curves should not change at different volume levels, e.g. that you can change a target up and down the SPL range and the shape should remain? That is not conjecture because we have actually tested it, and there is evidence that indicates that at least over about a 10 dB scale, there is a fairly coherent preference. And in fact, the preference variations that exist are inverse to equal loudness. That is, louder listeners prefer more bass, not less.
But 10 dB is not 20 dB.
Amazing insights. Yes, no, I mean,
what
it's
if
something
it
where
was 20 dB?
Exponential.
it is something that would be worth testing. It is a listening test that would be pretty easy, and it's a listening test that I would like to do at some point.
Yeah, you could get to the extremes of this, right? And just see if that holds true, as you go out.
10 dB, all right, someone says 10 dB is not significant at equal loudness. That is objectively not true. That can have a massive change in the shape of an equal loudness contour depending on where it is.
Yeah, the difference between 40 and 60 or 40 and 50 dB would probably
I don't
be.
know.
The ISO
weird.
226 curves are the ones you're thinking of. Donjo.
I'm more interested in the actual. So if you're testing EQ curves against one another, just testing them one against the other when there's meaningful adjustments isn't necessarily the same volume because they're not normalized the same. And so because people
and the
things that
problem
are
with
louder,
normalizing is
but you know what I mean, right?
music.
If people prefer things that are louder generally, they might prefer the one that just if you were to have them be pink noise, that one would end up being louder.
Well, but there's an additional problem, which is that humans don't necessarily weight perceived loudness on a crescendo and perceived loudness
You're going to talk
on
about
the
crest
minuendo
factor.
the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and because the spectral content of peaks is different than the spectral content of the average, which is much more dominated by low frequencies. So loudness matching with different frequency responses and music is actually quite difficult.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And so it's something where, again, it'd be great to be able to control for this, but to some degree, my perspective is I don't care so much about that because I'd rather let people adjust to their own preferred listening levels and then see what they prefer.
Yeah,
because if there was a quantifiable variation that was very large, then I would look into the why.
I don't think, the loudness normalization thing doesn't necessarily. It might change the results slightly, but I don't think it's one that is as consequential, especially over a larger sample size.
Craig Stark says we need to replicate all of the olive studies. History says we have so much variation that we shouldn't rely too much on specific findings without replicating them.
I mean, this is true. Fundamentally, in mature science, you do not have specific studies, you have meta-analyses. And there are downsides to meta-analyses and systemic reviews, which is, of course, that a lot of bad results can end up leaking into your good result pool. But you still do need something that is more robust than we have one result. Unfortunately, where's the money? Where's the money, Craig? Give me the money.
Hasn't Craig given you enough?
Yeah.
Craig hasn't given me the mesh for my head yet, so he hasn't given me enough.
I have them. He gave them to me.
You can do all kinds of things.
That'll be $5,000.
Yeah. So that is the problem, though, is basically everyone agrees that it'd be great if we did the research 3 times over.
I have one spicy take from
We should probably end after this one.
Yeah. Line is better than area. Adherence isn't the goal. References.
What the fuck is the reference? What are you referencing off of? You don't know that you had that line experience. What the fuck is the reference, Mark?
This is a spicy
What are you referencing to?
This is a spicy take from my Belroy boy. We're both Belroy pilled, so.
Peak Designs
Elroy?
Chads rise up.
um,
Also in chat, some ginger whose name I'm terribly forgetting, but it's Craig's son.
Miles.
Miles, right. I was thinking, it can't be that I've encountered two people named Miles at the show, but I did. But Miles said he was referencing the Moondrop Variations, which has a different
yeah.
FR as a function of input level. That's just cursed.
Yes. That's just
That's
a thing
just
that never should have happened and
absolutely
should never
fucking
happen
I
again.
cursed.
actually have a question about that. Was that is that like how all of them behave, or was that just one unit that was tested for that?
It was one unit for both sides, and I would be confident that no random variation in production could cause such a strange
So, but, like,
deterministic problem on both
is
sides.
that literally why it's called variations? Because that would be hilarious.
I mean, it'd be hilarious. It isn't, but it would be hilarious. Miles, that graph was in my talk.
Yeah,
Yeah,
No, but
so
I am
my
serious, Mark,
variations,
though.
I measure everything fairly loudly, and it does measure with significantly more low mid range than you will find on.
So is this why some people
most.
find it tolerable? Because they're listening at levels that are different, you know.
They would have to
Wait,
listen
so
very loudly.
loud with gives you more.
Low mid.
Loud. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, interesting. It's funny because it's almost a little bit ironic in that case, because like I sometimes feel like I can tolerate Harmon IE more if it's quieter, because it's not as, you know what I mean? Like it's not as.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what Scott was trying to get
So, like,
at.
if it actually does that when it's quieter, then you know.
I mean, that's the question of whether there should be dynamic loudness normalization.
Well, there is with the Apple.
Is
the Apple.
It's something that people keep reinventing, but nobody ever actually does or at least publishes the underpinning work justifying that it actually makes people like it better. It's just people see equal loudness contours and then immediately conclude that it's necessary. I have never experienced it to improve my experience of music, I'll be frank. So maybe I'm biased.
Harty, we really do need to do like a music channel of some kind, or music segment on this channel. Whether it's music react,
music is dog shit.
That's why it'd be funny. Like whether it's music react or genuine just like album reviews, like we got to do something, you know. We have it
very
here.
In favor of this.
Yeah, I'm not saying Blaine should do something.
I am serious though, Mark. I want to know what the fuck the reference point can be if the whole reason we're opposed to the line is that there's variation.
It's a reviewer target. You know the answer.
No. So
the thing is, we don't know that line reflects their actual experience.
We don't. But to steal man his thing there, if you just said like, you know, we have 500 people, all with their own reviewer targets, you know, maybe there's enough where you can tease out what some of the trends.
Blaine, by the way, did you ever end up averaging out all of the reviewer targets that you got hands on?
Oh yeah.
What did they come out to look like?
It looks like a shitty version of the Harmon target. Hold on, I'll find it.
I was gonna say I would be very surprised if it didn't just end up as like the hybrid between IEF and Harmon, where it has like IEF upper mids and then Harmon base shelf, but IEF low mids.
God in heaven, I have so many workbooks from that. I forgot how fucking frenetic that whole period was. I have like legitimately 200 Excel workbooks from that period.
Jesus Christ. Sorry for sending you another one, but
oh no, I appreciate it. Hold on, let me find it. It's in here somewhere.
Okay, we really do need to end though. So this is.
Oh yeah, no. All right, this is probably gonna have to be something that people bug me in the Discord to get.
Oh, fair enough. We'll go off the air.
Mark says, I find y'all's dislike of reviewer targets legit confusing.
Why would it be confusing? We have explained ourselves so many times.
I think I think either he's trolling us or he wasn't, or I was not clear enough in my presentation about why I don't like that.
I remember the slide that you're
as long
talking
as they're
about.
based on an HRTF. Like, we understand why they exist. It's just stop drawing HRTFs, please.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's two things, that and also you probably should also like do a listening test that actually confirms, just an informal one with like foobar ABX that confirms you actually do prefer that.
That you're not just a random number generator.
Well, no, that like you actually like that response.
Oh, because you might
like,
just have drawn it, and then I get what
Yeah.
you're saying. Yeah. That's probably the biggest problem with it.
Yeah,
I
that's the second biggest. The biggest is that they literally hand draw HRTF features, and it makes me want to die.
I didn't know that they were doing that. Hand drawing
Yeah.
them?
Yeah.
So
Wow.
like, for example, in
I thought it
Mark's
was
case,
based on,
what
like,
he does
products
is
that
he
they
just
like,
like puts points. Like
Oh, okay.
like if you look at his target, it's like very straight lines. That does happen to align fairly well with an HRTF. But even so, it is like point here, point here, point here, point here.
He's giving us question marks. So is this true?
That's what he told me a while ago, at least.
Okay. Maybe we should have Mark on.
Apparently, you're
for-
slandering Mark Ryan Sally.
Okay. With all apologies to Mr. Super, we do need to end. We should probably have Mark on at some point to explain the rationale, and then you guys can fight, and we can have Fight Club with Mark. Does that
I
sound
would
good?
love to have Mark on.
That
Okay.
would be fun.
I honestly, I love Mark.
Yeah.
Even though
Yeah.
he has a reviewer target, which I hate.
I actually like
Yeah.
his target, but it is a reviewer target.
It's a review. Yeah. All right.
I hate it by the nature of what it is.
Yes. So hatred in all things. That's what we stand for here. And in that
At
terrible disappointment-
headphones.com, who are the sponsors of this program, your number one place to hate audio products on the internet, as well as to buy them. Not only headphones, but also speakers, DACs, amplifiers, and our Listen More cables, which I personally sourced. So if you don't like me, you shouldn't buy them.
Yes. If you don't like Blaine, you should buy all the things that he doesn't like.
Yeah, exactly. You should go on there and buy every iFi product we stock.
There you go. It's pronounced iffy.
It is pronounced iffy.
Yeah. And on that terrible disappointment, it's time to end. So, like, that's copyright. If probably on that terrible disappointment, we got to end the stream. So we'll see you guys in the next one. Bye for now, and thanks.
Remember to
everybody.
suggest topics in our forum thread. Yada yada.
Yeah, yada yada. Exactly.
Bye.
All right. This is
Bye.